Good evening, everyone. My watch says 6 o'clock, and it's time to start. Would like to welcome everyone to the 2026 Primary Candidates Forum for this, put on by the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce. We thank you for coming. My name is Blake Jorgensen, and some of you, I see a lot of familiar faces. Some of you may recognize me in my 16 years as a city commissioner and 4 years as mayor. I retired in 2022 from public life, and I currently reside just outside the city limits. I would ask that the candidates for the U.S. Senate, if you could please make your way forward to the stage while I'm continuing to talk. We also ask that you turn off your cell phones to limit any interruptions. The restrooms are located on either side of the auditorium at the rear, and would point out that the questions tonight have been submitted ahead of time via the online submission portal. If you have a question that you'd like to be answered at the October 7th General Candidates Forum, you can leave it with the check-in table in the lobby. Please keep your conversations in the auditorium to a minimum, allowing for the program to keep moving. We have 19 candidates this evening for the 49 slots in the primary. So excellent turnout. We'd like to thank the sponsors, the Ottawa Area Chamber of Commerce Legislative Action Committee, KOFO, and the Franklin County Farm Bureau Association. Also like to thank the City of Ottawa and the Ottawa Memorial Auditorium and their team for allowing us to use their facility and technology. Once again, if the U.S. Senate candidates would please come forward and join me on the stage. I'd like to ask the auditorium to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Come on up. Looks like you may be alone on the stage today. Okay, well. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for office? And since there's nobody else joining you at this time, we'll give you 5 minutes.
All right, never tell a candidate they have more time, but thank you so much for welcoming me here today. I'm Christy Davis, and I'm a proud fifth-generation Kansan. I've spent my life here because this state is worth fighting for. I have worked in every county in Kansas on projects that actually determine whether or not a community survives. Housing, hospitals, childcare, broadband, water systems, and economic development. Those aren't talking points to me. They're things that determine whether young people stay in our communities, businesses grow, and small towns survive. And to me, your community is more than a campaign stop. Some of you may recognize me because I've been doing economic development work here for many, many, many years. And before we talk about policy, we need to answer one question: who can actually do this job? Throughout my career, I've never believed leadership meant showing up with all the answers. I've always worked with communities like yours, sit down with folks in the community, identify what their priorities are, and then work together to identify solutions to challenges. It's exactly, about showing up, listening first, bringing people together, and getting results. That's exactly what I did at USDA, partnering with communities to deliver more than $1.3 billion in investments across Kansas. And a program that I created has leveraged about $10 billion in economic impact statewide, making it possible for projects right here in Ottawa, including the Ottawa Middle School into 45 housing units, the North American Hotel into courthouse apartments with 26 senior living units. We've rehabbed Old City Hall, restored the Franklin County Courthouse, and converted the old post office into the Lincoln event space. That's what I've done my entire career, and that's what's missing in Washington today. It's too much noise, it's too much performance, not enough results. And that's why this campaign is built around one simple idea: pick Kansas, pick home. It means rebuilding trust, making sure our kids know that they can be successful here, that they don't have to leave the state they love to find success. But it also means that voters should never have to guess what their senator believes. I'm proud to be a Democrat. I'm proud that I support reproductive rights. I'm proud that I don't negotiate on civil rights, affordable health care, or honestly, democracy itself. We have too much at stake to send someone to Washington and hope they vote the right way once they get there. There's already too much to worry about, and we shouldn't. We shouldn't have to worry about folks bowing down to pressure. Kansans can't afford 6 more years of Roger Marshall. But we also can't afford 6 years wondering whether the person elected to replace him will stand with Democrats. I mean, we're a month away from our Democratic primary. We shouldn't worry about the person who's running against him in the general not taking a stand on these issues. Because my faith taught me to lead courageously, I recognized years ago what Donald Trump was turning the Republican Party into. And I was willing to say it out loud. Others in the party, others in my race, decided to remain with the party until just months ago. So Kansans deserve to ask what changed, and more importantly, whether our values have changed or simply that this is a political opportunity. I know firsthand that serving in Washington means making hard decisions. You can't be everything to everybody. But you should always be honest about who you are. I'll work with Republicans, I already have. I'll work with independents, I'll work with anyone who's willing to move Kansas forward, but I will not compromise on our fundamental rights or our democratic values, because this job isn't about politics. It's about people. It's about whether Kansas has someone who shows up when communities need help, someone who knows how government actually works, someone who has a track record of delivering results. If you want a senator who listens before speaking, works before campaigning, and puts Kansas ahead of politics, I'm asking for your vote. Together, let's pick Kansas and pick home. And you asked a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know, I live in Chase County, population about 2,500, and I live in Cottonwood Falls, population 900. It's our county seat. I have experience in agriculture and in rural development. The expectation of someone who serves at the national level as a representative of Kansas is that they will serve on the Ag Committee. I'm the only person in this primary race, well, certainly the only one here today, but I'm also the only one with experience that is suited for that work. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Davis.
Bring it.
Since the format for this evening is that if there's an unopposed on the stage, just have allotted time for the opening statements. All right. Well, thank you very much.
I will stick around if anybody has questions. I'll answer whatever you bring to me, because it's important that your U.S. Senator stand for questions. So happy to stick around a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, welcome, gentlemen. We'd
Thank
like
you.
to start out by giving you an opportunity to introduce yourselves and maybe tell a little bit about yourselves. You have 5 minutes to do so.
Starting with me.
Yes.
My name is Chase Laporte. I'm running for the Republican nomination for the 3rd Congressional District. The 3 main platforms I'm running on is congressional term limits, balanced budget, inflation reduction, excuse me, keeping the House majority, and being the most electable candidate in November. I must have struck the right nerve because I'm drawing attention already, so I appreciate everybody who's already supported me up to this point. I just asked for your vote in August if you're a registered Republican. I asked for your vote for Stacey Rogers for governor, and I asked you to vote yes on the judicial amendment, and I won't take any more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jink. Is it Laporte?
Laporte, correct.
All right, Laporte. And now, Mr. Jenkins, is your turn. 5 minutes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Jenkins. I'm married to a wonderful wife, Ann. I got 5 kids and 9 grandkids, so I've been kind of busy much of my life with all that. I served a couple of careers, so I did them concurrently. I was a United States Army officer, Green Beret, infantry, intelligence, a number of those fields. Served a 30-year career with the United States Army. Part of that time was active duty, part of that time was reserve components. So while I was in reserve components, I worked for the federal government, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and it kind of brought up this interesting dichotomy. I think Rush Limbaugh one time said, the purpose of the military is to kill people and break things, and it's kind of interesting because my FEMA job was to save people and fix things, so that was kind of an interesting combination. But those careers were both pretty fulfilling for me. I retired as a colonel from the United States Army and retired as a senior federal guy that actually went as far as to actually run national disasters as the lead federal official. So I've got quite a bit of background and experience. Hard to tell about it in just a couple minutes, but that gives you a little bit of an idea at least. See if there's anything else. Oh yes, I did serve 2 terms on the city council in Shawnee, Kansas, where I was president of the council in the last couple of years. And while I was there, we did a lot of stuff that was pretty important, had some really great public-private partnerships going on, where we actually established a downtown Shawnee where there was none prior to that. It was very limited. And we also provided a voice for the citizens, because many of you have been to council meetings and so on where you're allowed your 5 minutes to talk. Well, I fixed it up where you got 30 minutes to talk as a group and actually make a real live presentation on PowerPoint or whatever else worked for you, because it was kind of heavily weighted inside of the developer, and it was pretty rough on the part of the individuals to try to counter that. So that's just a couple examples. Of course, we focus very heavily on the fire department, police department, and those things that we're supposed to be focused on. You know, if you look at our government right now, it's kind of out of focus. They're chasing all the pretty shiny things, and they're not getting down to the basics like national defense needs to be taken care of. Public safety comes first, infrastructure comes second, and we need to knuckle down and do those things, and we got to get rid of this national debt. And I've got some ideas on how to do that, but we're not going to have a lot of time to discuss them probably, but that's some of the things of interest is obviously national security, taking care of the public debt, and taking care of our first responders as well. Those are 3 things that are pretty high on my priority list. But of course, it's all a priority, and what you want is a big priority. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. So we have a few prepared questions. This first one will be a 2-minute question. Agricultural businesses are the lifeblood of our local economy and much of the state. With prices going up, crop prices coming down, increased fuel costs, tariffs, etc., what would you do to protect Franklin County and American farmers? And we'll start with you.
So inflation reduction would be the first to address, to spur economic growth and make life affordable again. Staying out of the Middle East unnecessarily also will go a long way in price reduction on day-to-day life in Franklin County and the rest of the 3rd Congressional District. And then also more focus on domestic farming and That's my answer.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
There's a number of issues there dealing with the farming. One thing right off the top is looking at the labor situation for farmers. Coming up with labor that can get help on these farms and be able to be priced in such a way that you can afford to do it and still produce your product, your farm goods at a reasonable rate that can be marketed. That's one big thing. Obviously, we've got the issues dealing with the fossil fuels, the diesel fuel that's so necessary for you, the fertilizer, which has been a big problem. Also, I'm happy to note that we've got some initiatives going on right now to try to produce a lot more fertilizer here in the United States. There's some proposals that are actually taking place and not just being proposals, so I think that's going to help. I think it's also an issue with educating the American people a little bit about farmers, because I don't think they have a clue, quite frankly. They think that I guess they think that you grow all this stuff in the grocery store and then just stick it out on the shelves, and they don't know what has gone into that. They don't know about the family farm. They don't know about even the corporate farms and how much work goes into that and how expensive it is and how hard it is to deal with things like natural disasters and a number of issues which make it even harder for you to accomplish your mission, which is to produce for the American people.
Okay, thank you. And the next question will also be a 2-minute question, and we'll start with you, Mr. Jenkins. The American people look at Washington and see a very divided Congress. What do you plan to do on working across the aisle?
That's a very tough question, believe it or not, because there's, as you say, it's very divided. And you know, it's I kind of liken it to the idea of the lemmings are all going to run out and jump off the cliff. Do I want to be part of that operation? And I really don't want to be part of that operation. So in some cases, I'm going to have to oppose a number of things being proposed by our Democrats on the other side of the aisle. Will I work with them if it's a bill that we can work with? Absolutely, because that's how you get some things done. You can't just do it all on your own. You do need to form some form a truce or whatever to get some things across the line. So that's important, and it's going to be important. But I've worked with just about everybody in my lifetime. I've been actually served as the regional interagency steering committee chair for all the federal agencies in Kansas City. And that's like herding cats. And if you can get all those people on the same page, not just the federal agencies, but they were also the states, the NGOs, and private industry people, representatives as well. And getting all those people on the same page was quite a chore, and I was successful at it. So I think that does show that you have some ability to reach across the aisle to others and get things done.
Mr. Laporte?
Just civil rhetoric, civil discourse. There's Republicans and Democrat candidates in various races here in this room. We're all Kansans. We're all working together for a better America. There's no need for vitriolic tactics, vitriolic rhetoric. Sharice Davids, I just disagree with her. I don't dislike her. I don't vote for her. We just need to open dialogue with each other as political parties. We may vote differently, but we need to speak with each other and not be vitriolic towards each other. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last question that we have prepared for you, we'll call it a 90-second time limit. And what legislation existing or that you foresee would you like to see accomplished if elected? And we'll start with you, Mr. Laporte.
Sorry, what's the question again?
What legislation existing or that you would like to see would you like to see accomplished if elected?
Just a balanced budget. Get a balanced budget so we can stop with all the stopgap budgets and the 11th hour voting on such bills, and having to sit down line item with an accounting professional and cut out a lot of unnecessary spending and waste. Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins?
There's a couple things I'd be very interested in. One is the Save America Act. I'm very serious about that. I think that's something that we need to get done. It's something that has to be passed. I think it's time to restore the confidence in our election system here in the United States. And for whatever reason, whether it's real, perceived, and otherwise, it's still important that we seal that up and make that something we can all respect and think has our best interest at heart. So we have to get that done, and I don't know what the problem seems to be up there. Let's just get it done. And I would definitely be on the side of getting it done. The other thing is, I'm really hot on this fraud, waste, and abuse issue, and I would support any legislative activities which would crack down on this fraud, waste, and abuse. We're talking in terms of up to $500 billion, and that's folded money. That's a lot of dough that's going down in the toilet, and it's going, a lot of it, overseas, even to people like warlords in Somalia and God knows where all. It's pretty serious, and that would be a very important item to me. Thank you.
Good. And finally, we'll allow for a minute for you folks to wrap this up. Mr. Jenkins, you're first.
I think I have a lot of background and credentials which would allow me to do a really good job for you up there in the United States House of Representatives. I've had some very challenging things in my life. Standing in the door of a C-130 at 1 o'clock in the morning, looking out that door until the green light goes off so you can jump out and enjoy the bright, fresh air. That kind of thing, the kind of thing where you've been challenged with a disaster where everybody is suffering and in really bad shape and trying to get relief and trying to get some restore their lives for all those people who have been so disrupted. In one case, I actually did a 4-state one. I was the federal coordinating officer for the 4-state region, and that was during the Great Floods of '92. And that was quite a challenge, trying to make that thing fixed in a reasonable period of time. But that kind of background, I think, really helps me if I go out to Washington, D.C., and I'm having to work with others, and I've got that I don't know, that kind of resume that people can have confidence in and say, this guy knows what to do. So that's what we're hoping to get up there. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Laporte, 60 seconds.
I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on myself, but I asked for your vote. July 18th is when polls open in Johnson County, and then different days around that day in the rest of the 3rd District. I'll just go over endorsements. I asked for your vote, Chase Laporte. I asked for Stacey Rogers, vote for governor, and vote yes on the judicial amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Will you be available for questions out in the lobby afterwards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would. And just one comment. I also support the amendment for the Supreme Court. Please vote yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. This evening, we appreciate that you made the journey to Ottawa. We'll start out by giving each of you a 5-minute period to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for governor. And we're going to start with you, Rick. Yeah, Nick, I'm sorry.
I'm not used to getting over a couple minutes when I go testify at the State House, so this will be kind of fun. This election is about a simple question. Do Kansans want big government or limited government? My name is Nick Reinecker. I've spent my life serving Kansans as an EMT, a firefighter, a police officer, certified nurse aide, and for the last 18 years, manager of the Inman Harvest Cafe with my wife and running mate, Katie, where we raised our children amongst members of the greatest generation who helped to teach us about faith, family, responsibility, and neighborliness. We decided to run for governor because we are just tired of being overtaxed, we're tired of being overregulated, and we're tired of politicians forgetting that our rights come from God and not government. Also, we're tired of losing. See, we've had Democrats for the last 8 years, and there's issues with the current selection on a couple of issues, so I just don't want to lose again. I want a Republican at the second floor of the People's House. So as governor, I will defend liberty, I will defend life, I will defend state sovereignty, and I will stand on the Republican Party platform. Now, in that is the most controversial issue that separates me from all the other Republican candidates. And to be on the record, I have been the first, and for the last 15 years, going up to Topeka, advocating to get cannabis off the Controlled Substances Act and allow farmers, producers, and just general liberty of a plant that you've been trained to call marijuana. I hate that word, but that's what we've been trained to call it. Cannabis, the plant, doesn't matter what we use it for. There's no way that I think government should tell us what seed we can't plant, and so we just need to stop that. Now, on the other hand, I also am wanting to enhance penalties for synthetic substances like fentanyl and methamphetamine. So in my world, if I would like to have a level 3 felony if you're in possession of any of those synthetic substances, and presume prison instead of even treatment, because I think early consequences produce character, and it will help the state budget by not having to spend a whole bunch of money on pharmaceuticals for people with depression and anxiety and all this other stuff. So, I respect the doctor-patient relationship, but I also understand we need to be accountable to what we do. So I'm not about taking back Kansas. I'm about giving Kansas back to the people. We have trust issues with the Republican Party, and we need to rectify that through good governance. Local control, liberty are the things that I will err. If I err, I will err on the side of liberty and local control, whether that be property taxes, education, or whatever. I want to take it down to the local level and the individual. It's my goal to have a budget that is at a pre-COVID-19 level. This will take massive amounts of work. It'll be an extreme heavy lift, but I think it's possible. Through natural attrition, we'll cut some waste, fraud, and abuse from the Medicaid system. We'll look at the at-risk funding for the education system, and also through getting cannabis off the Controlled Substances Act and allowing plant liberty, we'll also not use the foster care system as much. We won't be taking children out of their homes for stupid things. Law enforcement resources we won't need as much. So, things like that. On elections, I'm a firm believer that we should count the ballots. The most awesome experience I had was at the first district meeting one year where we sat and we counted ballots and built relationships, but it takes a virtuous people to do that. I don't like computers. I don't like us, our children or us being dependent on technology. So we need to get together and do those things together. On the property taxes as well, this is a local issue, and you as citizens should also be engaged. I will do whatever I can to lower property taxes from the state level. But you have to go to your meetings, and I know that this crowd probably does. You go to your county commission meetings, school board meetings, probably poll workers, precinct committeemen, but get your friends to do that too. So like I said, I'm not about taking back Kansas. I'm about giving Kansas back to the people. My name is Nick Reinecker, kansasunderdog.com. That's kansasunderdog.com. Get out the vote. July 14th, get registered, and I would appreciate your vote on August 4th. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Corson, 5 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm Ethan Corson, and I'm running for governor because I believe Kansas should be the best place in America to start a business, grow a career, and raise a family. As a father of 2 young boys, I think about the future of Kansas every single day. And I want my kids and every young person growing up in Kansas to have the opportunity to build their lives here, not feel like they need to leave to find opportunity somewhere else or to find good jobs or a better quality of life in another state. That's why I ran for the Kansas Senate, and that's why I'm running for governor. My background is in economic development. At the United States Department of Commerce, I saw firsthand that the strongest economies are built through partnerships. When government, business, local leaders, and our education system work together, we can create the conditions for investment, innovation, and long-term growth. As governor, I'll focus on making Kansas more competitive by expanding career and technical education, apprenticeships, and workforce training that connects people to the jobs that employers need to fill. We'll invest in housing, infrastructure, broadband, and healthcare because businesses can only grow when their communities are strong enough to attract and retain talent. Economic opportunity in Kansas should never be determined by the zip code in which you live. Every single one of our 105 counties matters, and every single one of our 105 counties deserves the chance to compete for new investment and for good paying jobs. I'm also proud to have as my Lieutenant Governor candidate Renee Duxler, who is the President and CEO of the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce. Her experience leading that chamber gives us a practical understanding of what local businesses need to succeed and what our communities need to grow. Together, we'll build an economy that rewards work, supports entrepreneurs, strengthens our workforce, and ensures that every Kansas community has the opportunity to prosper. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Holscher here. I'm sorry, Mr. Swa. I almost
It's whatever,
overlooked you.
I'll
I'm
yield.
sorry. 5 minutes.
Sure. Scott, so I'm sorry running late. I sometimes go to Life Mission Church on the north side of town because Greg Hall's a real good friend of mine, and I assumed it was about that fur, but clearly this was further, so I apologize. I meant no disrespect. My name's Scott Schwab. I'm your Kansas Secretary of State, and folks often ask me, like, why are you running for governor? It's not really why I want to be governor. It's why I want to do governor. And I tell folks, after about 15 years or so in the legislature, I became Secretary of State and found out I was on a computer system purchased in the 1980s by Jack Breyer. My team logged into a C prompt, which in some ways is safe because half the college kids don't even know what a C prompt is anymore, right? So we migrated off it. It took a lot of time, but the result was we were able to take our business filings from every year to every other year. I get it. It doesn't sound like a big deal. But it cut the workload in that agency in half. As a result, we cut fees. Kansas is in technology debt. We don't have computer systems good enough to do what we need to do today, let alone prepare for tomorrow. So we tell every agency on day one, reduce, modernize, or both. We are clunky, and we're bulky, and we're inefficient. We need to modernize so we can afford reasonable tax cuts so we can have better affordability in the state of Kansas. 2, I'm from Great Bend. When I go home, that town doesn't look the same. Our rural communities are contracting. We are the agricultural epicenter of the North American continent. We need to let the whole world know that if there's a question on crop yields and production or animal health, Kansas has the answer. And use that to drive small manufacturing in the ag sector to our rural towns because they'll want to be by the answer and they'll want to be by the ag. A couple of things we need to do on that is we need to finish Highway 54 going east out of Liberal, and we need to start working, it's going to take years, on a north-south corridor, 4-lane from Liberal to I-70 so we can get our ag folks to get their goods to market at a more affordable rate and get them to Texas where the markets are. And the last thing is property taxes. I have my BALD plan. It's bold, it's bald, it's beautiful. But it's better affordability by decreasing property taxes. Better affordable living by decreasing property taxes. And the point is, 9 points, if you go to scottschwab.com/bald, is if you sell your property for less than the appraisal, where's your tax refund? I think you should get one. I don't think government should be rewarded for making a mistake. 2, how do we know when they're using their software, they're cranking out the right appraisal notice? There's no transparency. Right now, under the Department of Revenue, there's Property Evaluations Division, and they set the guidelines that the appraisers are supposed to use, but they're like Pirates of the Caribbean. They're just guidelines, really. Nobody's following them. If you have a Qdoba in Manhattan, you have another one in Andover, they're not being appraised the same. So we need a consistency and have the Department of Revenue actually authorize the software that our counties can use to bring consistency across. And also, if you're elderly at a certain poverty level, don't pay property taxes. Give you all a break. It's not that much money it's going to cost the state or the schools. They're not using school resources anyway. But that way, folks can stay in their homes longer. So the reason why I'm running is 3 basic things. Modernize, revitalize, and fix. Modernize state government so we can afford reasonable tax cuts to make it more affordable to live here. Revitalize our rural communities so people have an opportunity to stay in the towns they grew up in. And fix a really broken appraisal system that's hurting taxpayers. I'm Scott Schwab, your Secretary of State, and please vote August 4th.
Thank you. Ms. Holscher?
Thank you and good evening. I'm Senator Cindy Holscher. It's so good to be here. Thank you so much for hosting us. You know what, Kansans, we are facing an affordability crisis, and you all know it. I've heard it after doing 70 town halls across the state. I've heard it from farmers. I've heard it from teachers. I've heard it from students. families, everyone who comes to my town halls. And the question I keep hearing is this: we're struggling to make ends meet. Why isn't the legislature doing anything about it? And that's why I'm running. I'm running to take on the wealthy, powerful interest groups that have captured our government and leeching off everyone else and making the cost of living and making life more unaffordable for the rest of us. I first ran for office back in 2016 at the height of the Brownback experiment, when our schools were facing very severe, drastic cuts to education and cuts to infrastructure. I was told I wouldn't win that particular race, but I ran and I won. And after winning that race in my very first term, I was a co-founder of the Women's Caucus, the Bipartisan Caucus, and we're the group that worked together to end the Brownback experiment and get Kansas back on track with revenue. But you know what? There's still a lot of work left to do, and too many politicians today are still working against the people, putting those special interest groups and corporations ahead of the rest of us. And here's the thing: I have a track record of getting things done. In fact, I'm the most successful Democrat in the Senate in terms of getting my bills and initiatives implemented. And actually, beyond that, I'm more successful than 90% of the Republicans. It's tough to navigate the waters, but I think my background helps me. I grew up on a farm. I'm the daughter of a union worker, as well as a construction worker, and I come from a family of veterans. I don't retreat. I work hard to get things done. Some of my opponents in this race take money from big developers, predatory banks, and big corporations, and they've supported giveaways to special interest groups while our cost of living goes up. And now a number of them want to roll out the welcome mat for these data centers all across our heartland. But that's not what I'll do. I'll focus on lowering property taxes. I'll make healthcare more affordable. I'll fully fund our schools and protect our seniors and farmers. Because I work for you, the people. I'm Senator Cindy Holscher, the Democratic frontrunner. I'm ready to fight, I'm ready to win, and I'm ready to lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you. Well, this is really interesting because Cindy and I have a lot of similarities, is that we were both raised on a farm, but I'm a very conservative Republican, very pro-life, very pro-Second Amendment. In fact, I got my A rating in the email on my email yesterday from NRA, and I proudly have my NRA sticker on the back of my car. Yes, I am Charlotte O'Hara. I have served in the House of Representatives in 2011 and 2012, and then on the Johnson County Commission in 2021 to 2025. I am running for governor because we have to stop the steal of our property through these high property taxes. We are being taxed on unrealized gains. The Democrats in Washington, D.C. has been tried to tax unrealized gains for decades, and they have been stopped. But here in Kansas, we have been taxing unrealized gains for 40 years because we passed a constitutional amendment in 1986 on reclassification and equalization. Do any of you remember doing that? And the same year, we also voted in a constitutional amendment on economic development, which meant that opened the barn doors wide for all of these tax incentives, from Panasonic to the Chiefs to a Chinese communist company in New Century Air Center in just outside Gardner. That Chinese company, Sinano, they were giving a 30 cents a square foot property tax. That was about 12% of what they should have been paying. I was the only commissioner who voted no, the only one. 3 years later, that building is still sitting empty. Why did they buy it? What happened? They still have the tax incentive. So I am running to abolish property taxes because what has happened is that we have so eroded our property tax base with all of these tax giveaways, these incentives, that we have shifted the burden to residential. I received a graph from the Johnson County staff, and it showed that in 1989, in Johnson County, 47% of all property tax came from residential. Do you know what that rate is now? 70%. You see the big shift? That's a 50% increase in the burden. This property tax system, as it is, can't be fixed. We have to abolish property taxes. We have to go to a use tax. We have to reduce spending. We have to right-size government. We need to close the State Department of Education. That's $300 million a year that we're spending on paper shufflers that does nothing for our children in our schools. I have a degree in education. I homeschooled my kids. We need to stop taking federal funds. Federalization of education is a disaster. When you have 70% of your fourth graders who can't read, is this a problem? Yes, it's a problem, and we have to absolutely to fix it. We need to put all of the curriculum decisions at the local level. Let you decide what you want your schools to look like, not say, well, you know, this is a state mandate, this is a federal mandate, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that. No. You should have the power to decide what your schools look like. I'm extremely pro-life from conception to natural death. I support the direct election of our state Supreme Court justices. I have a degree in education, but I became a general contractor. I was a general contractor in Johnson County for over 20 years. I know about business. I have a small manufacturing company with my two sons. I know how tough it is. I have a couple of industrial buildings, small, 10,000 square foot and a 15,000 square foot. In 2018, the valuation on those two buildings increased 61%, and I lost the appeal. We have to save our schools, we have to abolish property taxes, we have to protect life, and we have to stop the steal with all of these tax incentives and no data centers, no tax incentives.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Rogers, 5 minutes.
Hello, I'm Stacy Rogers, and as the only member up here right now that is not a past legislator, I stand alone in this, in that why do we keep trying to put past legislators in administrative positions? So we keep doing the same thing over and over, asking for relief, for help. We get campaign promises, and yet nothing ever changes. So I'm a business owner. I am a homegrown Kansan, and I have been traveling this state, county by county, town by town, and visiting with people just like you in this room. And the stories that I hear, people often ask me, why are you doing this? And every day I wake up and I go talk to another Kansan, that solidifies my reason even more. Because across this state, as I've went town to town, and I've been called the hardest working candidate in this race, and I have talked to more people in this race than any other candidate, what I hear over and over is no one is listening to us. Nobody cares about us. No one is working for us. We don't like the options that we've been given in the past, but there's never a better one. And I looked at when I was looking at running, I said, you know what? I do care. I will come out and speak with you. I will listen, and I will work hard for you. I've always been a hard worker. And right now I put in about 15 hours a day out on the road and answering every message personally, because I think it is so important to hear directly from the people of this state and for them to hear directly back from me. Now, we have a lot of issues that need to be addressed in this state. In fact, everywhere you look, every single system is broken in some way. Obviously, right now, property tax is the big thing that has been failed over and over to give Kansans relief for through our legislature. And it is a collapsing system. So my lieutenant is Michael Smith. He is the chair of the Leavenworth County Commission. He's also been chief of police, mayor, and city administrator. So he's got about 40 years of experience in local government. And we have had long discussions about the failure of the property tax system and how it is collapsing on itself. It is not sustainable. and what we can do about it. And quite frankly, we have to replace it. We have more and more burden put on fewer and fewer people every year, directly because of decisions made by our state that have dug holes so deep they cannot get out of. So with the massive overuse of star bonds, with the removal of revenue sources from the cities and counties, from those two things right there are big problems with our property tax, but there are more. They could restart if the LAVTR, it was a revenue source that was meant to help with unfunded mandates, and they continue to pile more items into those every year that you are directly paying for. And so they can't restart it. They have absorbed that into the budget, and it's just not available anymore. And, you know, if they were to restart just that one thing, and I'll use Leavenworth as an example, it would drop property tax, the mills, by 8 mills. It would have a similar impact across the state. But they can't, because they've dug that hole too deep. Another thing is the fraud and waste that's going on in our state. There's a lot of areas that are going to be looked at very carefully, surgically, to find out where our money has been going. And then, of course, education. Now, I've talked about my education plan, which is to consolidate superintendents over multiple districts so that no one loses their identity, their rivalry, or anything like that. But we can save, just for example, Dickinson County alone would save over $400,000 a year just simply by consolidating superintendents. 40% of our entire education budget goes to administration and never reaches the teacher or the student. And as an employer, when I'm hiring those people and I have to teach them the things they should have learned in high school, that shouldn't be happening. When community colleges have to create programs to teach them the things that they should have learned in high school, that should not be happening. That's further, in our community colleges, that's more taxpayer dollars, programs we have to create. So again, there are a lot more issues in this, and of course, one of the most prevailing issues right now is the data center issue, which those companies are predatory. They take complete and total advantage of our cities and counties, and they need to be able to tell the truth, and we need to hold them accountable for that.
Thank you. We'll now move into the questions that have been submitted prior to this event. And the first one will be a 2-minute question, 2-minute answer, and we'll start with you, Mr. Corson. Water is a precious resource. With the rise in conversation about data centers and other large developments, the public has become more aware of the limited resources that we do have. What would you do to protect our resources and ensure that Kansas has sustainable water and electricity in the future?
So that's a great question and a critically important one for the next governor. Water should never become a partisan issue in Kansas politics, and thankfully so far it has not. One of the most bipartisan and most productive committees that we have in the legislature is the House Committee on Water. In what was a major accomplishment of both the governors and the legislature, last year we put together a task force on water where we got all of the right people finally in the room together working on recommendations for how we preserve our water supply, not just for the current generation, but for the future generation. That task force is going to be issuing their report and providing their recommendations at the end of the year. And so the role of the next governor is to secure a dedicated funding stream so we can implement those recommendations. We have really suffered as a state when it comes to protecting our water supply because we have left funding of our water system to the annual appropriations process done by the legislature in the legislative budget. And what that has meant is that in years where the budget was healthy, the water program was funded. In years where things got tight, water was the first thing that got cut. And that has really crippled our ability as a state to do any sort of long-term planning with respect to water. Because you can't do that kind of planning if you don't know how much money you're going to be getting the next year. We need to look at how we funded very successfully our transportation program throughout the state. We have a dedicated funding stream for that. That is part of the motor fuels tax, part of the sales tax, and federal funds that go directly to the transportation program. We need to implement the same thing with water so we can make the kind of long-term plans that'll preserve water not just for my generation, but for my kids and grandkids.
Mr. Swab, same time.
Yeah, thank you. Ken Rajas, who's my running mate, he's from Agra in far northwest Kansas, and his dad was chair of CEO of Kansas Farm Bureau for 20 years back in the 70s and 80s, and has forgotten more about agriculture than most people know, and is on the task force for water. It's why I brought him in, to make sure we had that voice in the room. What we're doing in western Kansas and making sure what we're not overdrawing from the water table, and each water zone is doing better and better about drawing less by leveraging technology to have more efficiencies. Part of our smaller farms are going to drip irrigation so that they'll be able to use less water but get higher yields. Can't use that for wheat, can't use that for sorghum, because most of your herbicides are going to be, it gets enacted by flooding it with water. But even still, when we do our circle irrigation, they are becoming more and more efficient. We do have an issue with western Kansas when they have the droughts. We're overdrawing from the Ogallala, but we're doing so much better now because we're measuring those water tables. When you get out this way, we don't have the water issues and shortages that we do out west. I would love to have like an Alaskan pipeline when we get flooded out here to find a way to pump it out west, but you're going up 1,100 feet of incline, and I don't think there's a realistic way to do it. But out on this side of the state, our water's doing much better. Our bean crops are looking pretty good. Our sort milo in central Kansas is doing good. And even in western Kansas, wheat yields are looking relatively good. And most of that success is one, El Nino. We're getting pretty good rain this year. We had some pretty good snows that protected that wheat that was in the ground when it broke during November and Christmas. But the best part is our farmers are vested in reducing their water usage and becoming more efficient and allowing that free market to go the direction they want it to go so they get the yields without using the water that they used back in the early 2000s and the 90s.
Okay. Ms. Holscher, same time.
You know, I mentioned I grew up on a farm. I was active in 4-H and FFA, and one of the very first speeches I gave in FFA was about the Ogallala Aquifer and the impending depletion. That was a few years ago, and throughout time we've seen that, you know, we have this mounting crisis. And I will tell you this, as I've done all these town halls across the state, it's an issue I'm hearing about, whether it be in the east, the west, all over the state. People are concerned about the water supply and what's happening. And really to address this problem, I will tell you, a lot of our family farms have the answer in terms of better technology that can be used. We just have to work to ensure that we're getting that technology spread around and working to make that happen and expand it across the state. But that's not going to be enough. We have worked on, and I'm happy to say my very first session in Topeka in the House, I was actually a member of the Water Committee. We put together an outstanding plan. It didn't get funded. And sadly, it's kind of sat there. We've had bits and pieces of it used. But we have to get that water plan funded. I will tell you what I do know won't help us, data centers. That's not going to help us with our water issues. And the fact of the matter is we have huge corporations that are wanting to come across our heartland into different areas of Kansas, and these are water-guzzling resources. So I'm pushing to put the guardrails in place. I'm proud to say I'm the first of the Democratic Party to issue a call for a moratorium to ensure we get those guardrails, because while I want to make sure we are looking at economic opportunities, I will not let it happen at the expense of our resources, in terms of our people being exploited, in terms of low pay, and I won't let it happen in terms of our resources being exploited. So I'm going to continue to fight for that.
Ms. O'Hara, same time.
Thank you. This has been an issue for over 100 years, and it started with the diversion and impoundment of water in Colorado. And there's been numerous lawsuits between Kansas and Colorado. at one time, the Arkansas River was actually a vigorous flowing river, and now it's a flood ditch. As I've been driving across Kansas, I've just been absolutely astounded as to how that river is totally, it's not a functioning river. So this is going to be an issue. The Ogallala aquifer obviously continues to go down, and I think that it is the people in western Kansas, the farmers, they know what they have, they know what they need. They have to work together and come up with a plan. It's not going to be government. It's going to be the people that are using the water that's going to come up with a workable plan. As far as the data centers, the reason that we have the data centers is that the SB 98 was passed in the 2025 legislation, or in the legislative session in 2025. That gave data centers a 20-year sales tax exemption. Now, I don't know what Senator Holscher's vote was on that. I don't know what Senator Corson's vote was on that. But that's why we have data centers just coming in, stampeding into Kansas. And we have a data center in DeSoto that is that will be sucking water out of the Kansas River. And DeSoto gave them a $50 billion industrial revenue bond on top of the 20-year sales tax exemption. So anyway, lots of problems, lots of issues.
Ms. Rogers, 2 minutes.
Yeah, so back in 2012, I was serving as water commissioner in a little tiny town. I was a council member in little tiny town of Mount Hope. And my kids were little. I knew nothing about water. And so I said, well, if I'm going to make decisions about water for my community, you're going to have to send me to some classes. And one of the things that I learned during that time was that we actually had an agreement with Israel at that time to share technology that would greatly conserve water. They, had been recycling water for a long time and obviously growing things in the desert. And so when I decided to run for governor, I started to look back into that, and I said, whatever happened with that? I really couldn't find where we'd ever utilized any of those things. So from 2012 to now, this is, again, like Charlotte said, 100 years, but as late as 2012, there was actually a prediction map that projected what it would look like in 2025, where in the world we would have critical water issues. And do you know what was sitting right over Kansas? A big red dot. And so it's never the hot and sexy topic until we don't have it. And now that we're starting to have these other things come in or these other issues, all of a sudden there's a bigger concern for it. But there is a point where we won't be able to do anything to reverse it. When I am able to look at all of the information, I will look at every way that we can conserve water better. And one of those is not to allow data centers that consume tremendous amounts of water. And by the way, we're finding out across the country, they'll say, we're not using very much water, or we're a micro center, or we're a something else. And then they are actually either expanding later or using a tremendous amount more water and lying about it, illegally tapping into water supplies. And so we do have to put those guardrails in. There are, ones that have been approved. We got to protect our resources. We have to protect our communities from these companies that want to just take everything we have.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Mr. Reinecker, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Would like to correct earlier, it was mentioned that I've been a legislator. I have never been a legislator. I'm not House trained or Senate contaminated. I'm just a lowly citizen. As far as water goes and how it pertains to data centers, I'm a free market guy. I'm not a fan of bans, and I'm also not a fan of big incentives. I like local control, and I don't really want to mess or try to restrict farmers. So I think that should be done at a local level. Now, if there becomes an emergency use situation where I need to get Kansas Department of Emergency Management involved, then we can look at issues like that. But Surprise, surprise, the cannabis issue is right there. Unfortunately, there's a slang term called ditchweed. I don't know how much money we've tried to spend to get rid of it, but it grows with not a lot of water, doesn't need pesticides or herbicides as far as that goes in some situations. And I think it would be great to add it to our tools for the farmers and everybody. You know, just on a common sense thing, one of the uses for it, we could eliminate a lot of nylon plastics for trimmer string. Think of all the plastics we're putting into landfills and everything. And I'm no tree hugger, not at all, but I think the cannabis plant can be used for a lot of things that we are not taking advantage of. So I guess that'll do that for that question.
Thank you. The next question, prepared question that's been presented will allow for 90 seconds. And we'll start with you, Mr. Schwab. If you were elected to become governor, what should Kansas focus on from an economic development standpoint?
Well, I would say we need to focus on manufacturing in our rural communities. For example, my hometown of Great Bend, there used to be a manufacturing plant called Fuller Brush, and it was the biggest competitor to Avon. Sara Lee came in, purchased it, shut the operation down, and now they don't have a hospital. It's going to be hard to bring a company to Great Bend, Kansas, if you don't have a hospital. And now all of a sudden, where they used to have 2 junior highs, they have 1. They used to have, I believe, 3 Pizza Huts, and now they have 1. So what's most important is protecting that small manufacturing, and by using our community colleges to make sure they're focused on what the workforce development is in that community. I don't understand why Barton County has a school of cosmetology when there's a private one an hour away, which cosmetology, obviously being bald, it's not a big thing to me anyway. But there's a bunch of beauty shops in town. It's not creating jobs, but they do need to focus on welding. Why does every community college teach English Composition 1 online? It's duplicative. Just have one teach it, and everybody can take the same one. All credits are completely transferable. And then we can reutilize the duplication, take those dollars and put it into workforce development so that when somebody graduates from high school, whether it's in Hayes, whether it's in Kinsley, or even here, they have a place to stay and grow their families. And, you know, it's interesting because my polling says it's the number 2 issue right now, even in Johnson County and Sedgwick County, is because there's folks like me that the opportunity was in Kansas City. And I will also say I met my wife in Johnson County. I'd love to move back to Great Bend, but she's not going to move anywhere that's more than 4 miles away from a Target. So,
Thank you, Mr. Schwab.
Yeah.
Ms. Holscher, same time.
You know, to me, what makes Kansas just a wonderful state and a wonderful state to do business in is its people and the communities, our workers, our schools. And we have to continue investing in those things to keep Kansas a great place to live and do business. And that development comes down to things like investing in small businesses, which have been the hearts of our communities for many years, and making sure we're putting that investment in important areas that will help us to continue to grow. And honestly, we should be looking at things like legalizing cannabis. I've been working on it for the past 10 years, got it passed in the House, and we've made a lot of progress. But this would be a new crop for our state. It has low water usage. But here's the fact of the matter. $255 million is what has been raised in Missouri through legalization. And guess what? Cannabis is here in Kansas. We're just not getting the revenue for it. This could be a huge economic boon to us. Additionally, it has a lot of wonderful effects in terms of helping people who are suffering from cancer and other chronic pain issues. But again, we have to do more to start investing in our small businesses where the majority of our people work. And we have to look for continued economic opportunity. But there are certain things I'm not going to look toward. I'm not going to look toward things that continue to give tax development giveaways to billionaires and corporations, because there's only so much money we have to work with in the state. If we do that, then we can't invest in our schools and our roads and highways and our small businesses. So my focus is going to be on doing what's the best thing for Kansans and making sure that we're making investments that make sense.
Thank you,
help
Ms.
us.
Holzer. And I'm sorry, there is a clock in the back of the room that I've been monitoring, and when the time runs out, I do thank them and cut them off. All right. Ms. O'Hara, same time.
Thank you. I own a small business. Please keep the government out of it. I don't want your help. What Kansas needs is to lower taxes. We can't attract businesses to this state by being the high tax point on the prairie. It doesn't work. And our schools are absolute failure. So what we have to do is that we have to abolish property taxes. We have to cut expenses. We have to go to a use tax. We have to redo education in Kansas. We cannot continue to do the same thing. We have to close the State Department of Education. That is $300 million a year. We have to pass HB 254, which would prohibit public funding of illegal alien services. That's $600 million a year. We have to look at the two favorite places for scammers, and that's SNAP and Medicaid. We have to absolutely lower taxes so that companies want to come here. Stop the tax incentives. Let the free market work. And please never call my children workforce. That's a communist term. Please, they're employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rogers, same time.
So I am a small business owner and a medium business owner actually, and as I've traveled this state, if anyone ever tells you we do not have the talent in this state to home grow great companies without trying to attract these huge corporations that we then give a ton of tax breaks to, they have not traveled this state. We already have amazing companies that are homegrown right here. And, I was visiting a school in the town of Palco, and they, through their public school system, have created a very unique program, an agricultural program, but also they're teaching welding, they're teaching these skills. In fact, they had the kids redo an entire school bathroom. They did everything. Do you know what that teaches? Ownership, pride in work. We have lost so much of that. We need to get back to that and give them a reason. And then they have an incentive program through that school to keep them here in this state and continue living in this state. I'm very thankful. I have 3 sons. They're all grown. They have all chosen to live and work and raise their families in this state. And I want to see that for more people. I want them to have that option. I don't have enough time to tell that story, but there's more stories later.
Well, thank you. Mr. Reinecker, same question.
Yes, sir. Very simple. Let the people and the market be free to run and drive the economic development. No crony capitalism, and stop picking winners and losers. We must lower taxes, lower spending, and strengthen families as far as that goes. The outmigration in Kansas is bad, and we need to figure out a way to stop it. Now, my wife and I run a cafe in central Kansas, and I work hard to make the fried chicken that I do. Actually, we just got billed as I think in the top 5 of the chicken in Kansas. But we use real ingredients for real people. We use real butter. It costs more, but we know that we're giving you real food and not trash that's going to hurt your body. So we have to have virtue on both sides of the fence, in the legislative, in the executive, and the judicial branch, as well as in the citizenry. And did I mention anything about cannabis? Because if I didn't, I'll say it again. Take cannabis off the Controlled Substances Act and allow plant liberty for any purposes. I don't really care about revenue. It may bring in some, but it's more of a liberty issue for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corson.
Well, this is dangerous. I'm going to try to hit 2 big topics. The first is ag is the largest sector of the Kansas economy by far, and our farmers are hurting. And as governor, I'm going to be really focused on what we can do to help the ag sector in our state. We lost over 700 farms in 2025. And that was before the war in Iran put all this pressure on fuel and fertilizer. My background is in international trade. I was chief of staff of the International Trade Administration at the U.S. Department of Commerce. And as we've gone around the state, we have talked to dozens and dozens of county farm bureaus. And what I have told them is that as governor, I will personally lead as many trade missions as it takes to open up the markets that they need to sell their products. And I have the background and the experience and the knowledge to do that that is unique from anybody else running for governor. The second thing is that we need to have a statewide economic development plan. One of the things that I am really proud of about our campaign is that as we've traveled, we've gone around county by county talking to different chambers of commerce, talking to economic development professionals, because what works in Leawood is not going to be what works in Hill City. And I have talked to the two folks personally in Hill City who are working on economic development. And my questions are always, what is going well? What are your challenges? And what would you like to see from the next administration? I'm so focused on this that as my lieutenant governor, I picked one of the most successful chamber leaders in our state from Salina.
Thank you. At this time, we'll give 90 seconds for you to wrap up, and if there's any topics that you'd like to cover that hasn't been, this will be your time to do so. And we'll start with you, Ms. Holscher.
Kansans, the time is approaching when we have to make choices, and our next governor of this great state will determine whether the state fixes problems and lowers costs for everyday Kansans, or keeps cutting deals for corporations and billionaires. You're going to hear a lot of promises from lots of different people, but here's what you need to look out for. You need to look out to where the money's coming from. Ties to corporate donors and wealthy folks, that ties people right back in and candidates right back into the establishment class. I'm the only one on this stage who's been delivering results for 10 years in the legislature and delivering results for working people. In fact, I'm the most successful Democrat in the state Senate in doing that. And I'm the only one who had the courage to oppose the stadium deal that enriched one group of Texas billionaires at Kansans' expense. And I'm the only one from my party who is opposing AI data centers without appropriate guardrails. I'm running on my record, not anybody's coattails, and my record shows that I can get things done for the people, and I don't have to be anointed by the establishment. November's going to be tough, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm the daughter of a Marine and a union worker. I don't retreat. I dig in, I get to work, and I get things done. And together, we're going to win this election, and we're going to make Kansas a much better place. I invite you to join with me, and we'll make it happen.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you. My great-grandfather came to Kansas in 1869. I was raised on a farm about 12 miles southeast of there in Bourbon County on the Osage River. I was a working part of that farm for 18 years. In fact, I was going to take over the family farm because I was the youngest of four. Dad said no, so off to college I went. But what we have in Kansas is this huge problem. If you hear anybody say economic development, run, because that means tax incentives, and that means taking money from your pocket and putting it in the pocket of somebody else. Just please understand that. Economic development doesn't work. We've been trying it for 40 years, and it doesn't work. I'm not going to tell you that Topeka is going to fix the problems because they just create problems. We have to dig in. We have to abolish the property taxes. We have to redo our schools, close the State Department of Education, stop taking federal money, stop using Common Core, social emotional learning, and every student succeeds, which is absolutely false narratives. It's been an abysmal failure. Stop doing failures. I have 5 children, 7 grandchildren, 2 dogs, and a horse. I have been invested in Kansas my entire adult life, and I ask you for your vote August 4th, and go to my website, o'haraforkansas.com. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Rogers.
So I wrap up all 105 counties next week and get to talk with a few more people, and then I bounce around the state and do a bunch of other things. But I have been doing this for 2 years, just out there trying to listen and be the voice and hear the voices of this state. Now, speaking of establishment and money, I have not taken any PAC money, no special interest money, and absolutely no large out-of-state donations. I said from the beginning I would only be beholden to the people. I don't want to have an influence over me except for the actual Kansans that live and work in this state. And I will continue to listen to you throughout my being governor for you. I will continue that. As you know, I answer every message personally, and obviously I might get a little busier later, but I think that it's so important to make sure that I still hear from people, because the last thing that I want to do is go to Topeka and start making decisions that I think are great, and you are all out here saying, what in the heck are you doing to me? So I got 10 seconds. My name is Stacy Rogers, and thank you guys so much for letting me be here tonight and talk with you.
Thank you. Mr. Reinecker, same time.
I want to thank you all for coming out. Thank you to the organizers and the moderator and all the candidates that came out for running. It's very brave to do such a thing. Again, this election is about a simple question. Do Kansans want big government or do they want limited government? As governor, I will govern with consistent, constitutionally conservative principles that put the people first, period. I will ask with every policy decisions, what would the founders say about this? And I'll do it Kansas style. 2 things I ask from you. Turn out, get out the vote, and vote yes on the constitutional amendment. Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody coming out. My name is Nick Reinecker. I'm the Kansas Underdog. Go to kansasunderdog.com to learn more about me, my family, and what I believe in. If you have some extra cash, throw it my way. I would appreciate it to keep the gas tank full. And just get out the vote. Turnout is so important because having 10 or 20 or 30 or 40% turnout still is not good. I want to see 70, 80, 90% turnout so we have the people's choice in office. So thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Mr. Corson.
Thank you. Well, look, I want to address something that's come up repeatedly here tonight. Senator Holscher absolutely voted for the Chiefs Incentive Package. It's a public vote. You all can go look it up. Senator Holscher absolutely voted for Senate Bill 98 that Charlotte mentioned, which provided the 20-year sales tax exemption for data centers. What does that say to you about Senator Holscher's character and fitness to be governor? That she would come into your wonderful community and deliberately and repeatedly lie to you about her voting record. Now, I'll tell you what, when I'm governor, you're not going to agree with me on every decision that I'm going to make. But I will never come into your community and deliberately mislead you about my views. I will always be upfront and honest. I'm running for governor because as the father of 2 young boys, what I want for them is for them to inherit a Kansas that's stronger than the one we have today. That's what we all want for our families, for our businesses, for our communities. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. I would be so honored to have your support, and I look forward to working with you to build the next chapter of Kansas's success.
Thank you. Mr. Schwab, you have the last word of this panel.
I don't know how to follow that. First off, thank you, Ottawa. You guys got pounded pretty good with the tornado earlier this year, and it's good to see how you guys are rebuilding. I'm just glad you all are safe and your community's coming together. You're a great pride of Kansas. The reason why I'm running is, like I said, I've done it. I've modernized my agency, cut expenses, and saved Kansans money. We can modernize state government without throwing the cogs of problems as the services that government is supposed to serve, and allow you to have legitimate tax cuts. Two, we got to help rural communities like Ottawa and get you that small manufacturing so your kids and your grandkids can stay here. And lastly, property taxes. And go to scottschwabs.com/bald and you can see the 9 points of my bald tax plan to make it more affordable for you all to stay in your house. It's really that simple. We have to fix the appraisal process as it relates to property taxes and hold everybody accountable so that the appraisers are not appraising to a number to help the county, but actually being honest with the value of the property you own. That being said, I got 30 seconds left. I'll just let you go out early. Thank you all for coming out. Have a great day.
At this time, I'll give you 5 minutes as an opening remarks, and if you want to tell us a little bit about you and why are you running for this position.
My name is Pat Proctor. I serve the people of Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth as their state representative, but I serve all of you as the chairman of your House Elections Committee. And I am running to serve you as your state representative. I'd start by saying that politics was not my life plan. I spent 25 years in the Army. When I was retiring, my life plan was to be a professor, which until 2 months ago I did. For 7 years, I taught at Wichita State in the Homeland Security program. And then I figured my wife would fill in the rest with our 2 restaurants. We've got a restaurant in Leavenworth and one in Manhattan. But a very wise man once told me, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So here I am in politics. And I didn't get into politics to be involved in elections. I got in politics to bring Leavenworth back, because like a lot of small towns across the state, Leavenworth's dying. We're losing about 300 people a year. I just wanted to keep people there and get more people there, and that's why I went to legislature. But when you become a legislator, they ask you what committees you want to be on, and I said what anybody in Leavenworth would say. I said I want to be on the military and veterans, and I want to be on the corrections committee, because that's what we do in Leavenworth. We do the Army and we do prisons. And they put me on the elections committee. I'm like, well, okay. Well, if I'm going to be on the elections committee, I better know everything there is to know about elections. So I made an appointment with the Secretary of State's office, because he's the chief elections officer. I spent the entire day just going soup to nuts through elections with his team, just incredible professionals. But the whole time I was in there, my phone was just blowing up. I was just getting call after call and text after text. And I wasn't going to be rude, because how often are you going to have all these professionals in a room just to feed your head? So I kind of put my phone aside and tried to ignore the buzzing the best I could. But when I was done, I walked out of Memorial Hall. I remember this like it was yesterday. I'm standing out there on the sidewalk in front of Memorial Hall, and I looked at my phone. And the day that I'd been in there learning everything there was to learn about elections was January 6, 2021. So while I'd been in there learning everything there was to learn about elections, January 6 had happened. It sort of hit me like a ton of bricks. I had all these ideas about what I was going to be doing in the legislature, and I've done a lot of that, encouraging investment in historic downtowns. I sponsored and passed the Historic Kansas Act, doing things to keep veterans here, because we got 60,000 empty jobs, and meanwhile we're losing 3,000 veterans and their family every year going to Florida and Texas. But probably the most important thing I was going to be working on was restoring confidence in our elections. And the reason I say that is in that 25 years in the Army, 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, a bunch of other really wonderful garden spots that I have no plan on going back to, I've seen what it looks like when people don't believe in the ballot box to solve their problems. They don't believe in civil processes or the rule of law. They pick up guns and they shoot at each other, and that's how they solve their problems. And frankly, we're starting to see that here. That kid that shot Charlie Kirk, that guy who armed himself to the teeth and bum-rushed the president at the press dinner the other night, they've decided that the ballot box isn't a place to solve their problems. So they're just picking up guns and trying to shoot people that they don't agree with. And I swore an oath. All those years ago, when I first put on the uniform, I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution, to support and defend our way of life and our form of government. And that oath didn't end when I took off the uniform. So if I could have some impact on this problem of restoring confidence in our elections and bringing people back into the process, I was going to do it. And so if I have the honor of your vote to be your next Secretary of State, I am going to be doing exactly what I've been doing as the chair of the Elections Committee. I'm going to be focused on restoring confidence in our elections in 4 ways. First, I'm going to be working on increasing transparency. Second, I'm going to be working on combating non-citizen voting. We'll be working on combating ballot harvesting. We'll be working on cleaning up our voter rolls. And I hope we get a chance to talk about all those things, but I'll just leave you with this. You know, we just celebrated our 250th birthday as a country. And I think we take it for granted, but there's never been a nation in the history of the planet Earth like the United States, where you're not a part of the nation because of how you pray, how you look, how you talk. You're a part of the nation because you believe in certain principles, that we're all equal under the law, that we're all created equal, that we're all endowed by our Creator with the inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we're also darn different. What holds it all together is our framers all those years ago. They created the social contract that every couple of years we're going to get together and we're going to decide who's in charge. And you might like it, you might not like it. A lot of times we don't like it. But that's who's in charge. If we lose faith in that, if we lose faith in our elections to decide our form of government, we're going to fly apart at the seams. And like I said, I swore an oath to stop that from happening. I'd be honored to have your vote to be your next Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Day, same question, same time.
Yeah.
Opening statements, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm really, really grateful to have this opportunity to share about myself and my campaign plans with the folks here in Ottawa. I am Jennifer Day, running for Secretary of State. I am a small business owner. I am a former legislator. I worked in the House in 2020 to 2021. And I have been active in politics, local politics and state politics for the better part of the last 10 years. Now, I think this is a seat that a lot of people tend to overlook and aren't prepared for to be on their ballot, frankly. And so I was hoping we'd be able to answer some questions tonight if people had them about what it is that this office does. But I think what the majority of people understand is happening with it is our focus on being the elections officer for the state of Kansas. That does not mean that we are running our elections here, by the way. They're run by our counties. And so we have to keep that in mind whenever we're thinking about who's going to be running this office in the future. But also it handles things like our business filings. So our corporations and LLCs are filing through this office, as well as all of the records for the state. And I think the majority of people realize that the focus is on the elections portion of things. And where I come from with that experience is that I've been working elections for the last 8 years in my county. I'm from Johnson County. I've been there for almost 30 years. I made Kansas my home after I graduated from college in the 90s. And I really have loved living here and becoming a part of the community. And that's one of my favorite parts of serving my community over the last 8 years. Working elections has given me a unique experience and perspective on how great our elections are here in Kansas and how safe and secure and fairly run they are. And I appreciate the work that Secretary Schwab has done for the last several years in protecting that right for all of us, as well as expressing his opinions on how safe and secure our elections and accurate they are as well. And so that's the work that I want to continue to do. I see this, and I think the majority of people would probably agree with me, as being kind of a boring office. And I want to keep it boring. I don't want this, I don't look for headlines. I'm not looking to put my thumb on the scale of anything. I see it as being a nonpartisan position. And what we should be focusing on is the service to Kansans, making sure that we're providing that customer service to our voters, but also to our county clerks, the people who are actually administering our elections, as well as to all of our business owners who need to interact with the office on a regular basis. So that's where my perspective is coming in. That's why I'm running for this seat, is because of my passion for voter education, voter accessibility, making sure that we all maintain that right to vote and that we get to vote however we please to do, which right now we have the opportunity to do via mail or in advance in person or on election day, because a lot of people really like that tradition of going on election day as well. When I was a little girl, my mom used to take me and my twin sister with her to go and vote, and I still have those memories of going into that voting booth with her and watching her go through that process. I so appreciate seeing people bring in their kids or their grandkids when they come in to vote, because it's an important thing that carries through with them through life, and they realize, oh, this is what I do when I grow up. I need to make sure that I pay attention to this responsibility. So again, this perspective of being an actual election worker, I've seen how it works. I've been there to do the work of helping people through the check-in process, going to the machines and understanding how those work, Some people want to know what happens with their vote once they put it in and get it scanned. So I talk about the audit process. We have some really great processes here in the state that make sure that things are accurate and safe and secure. And I just want to keep that going with this office. I'm going to be promoting things like reinstating the 3-day grace period for our mail ballots, because our mail ballots don't have enough time to get processed through the mail to get to our voters, as well as then for them to have the time to look at their ballot and get it back to the office in time. Thankfully, we have a lot of great drop boxes around the state, and hopefully if you do request a mail ballot, that's how you're choosing to return it this year. But also to make sure that we have that advanced voting period in place, because I know a lot of people like to promote the idea of Election Day being Election Day and going in and voting on Election Day and having that be the only day. I can say, as someone who's been working in Johnson County for the last 8 years, that would be disenfranchising tens of thousands of voters. We would not be able to service all of our voters in one day in Johnson County, and I fear that it would be the same case across much of the state. So what I'm going to be doing is working to work with our legislators, talk to them about my perspective, and share what I've heard from the county clerks. I'm going to be meeting with 3 more of them in the next 2 days here, going around and talking to people and hearing. And I think that the majority of Kansans agree with my perspective on that. And so that's what I've been working to do. I sure hope that I can earn your vote. And I, again, really appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak with you tonight.
Thank you. And Ms. Day, we'll start with you. And part of the problem of having pre-prepared questions is that it may be a little bit repetitious, but we'll allow for 90 seconds for this question. First off, does Kansas have safe elections? And or what changes would you like to see for how our elections are run?
I appreciate that question. I think we do have very safe elections here in Kansas. We've got great voter ID laws in place that ensure that and I appreciate our voter ID laws. I think it's been helpful to me as an election worker to have that in place, but it's not just your driver's license that's required. You can also use a concealed carry license or any government ID that has your photo on it to use for your identification. So we have a lot of great processes in place. Our audits, the security runs that they do ahead of each election to make sure that our machines are running the way that they're supposed to. And so we do have a lot of laws that we've been working on for the last several years to ensure that safety stays in place. And I would be working to advocate to continue that element, but of course maintaining that accessibility that's so important for our voters.
Thank you. Mr. Proctor, same question, same time.
No, thank you for the question. And we have good elections here in Kansas. I like to think I had a lot to do with that over my 6 years in the Elections Committee and my 4 years as chair. We've done a lot to address issues to shore up our elections process. But secure doesn't mean impregnable. And if somebody raises an issue, we have to have, and we do not have something in place to address that issue, we have to have the courage to address it. And one thing that I would talk about is non-citizen voting. When people first came to me with that, I'm like, I don't know if non-citizens are voting or not. So I did a little research. Turns out, I'll be darned, we do not have a single statute on the books and nothing in our Constitution that says you must be a citizen to vote. So I said, hey, that's low-hanging fruit. I can fix that. I sponsored a constitutional amendment, got a ton of co-sponsors. It'll be on your ballot in November. Everybody wants to talk about the August, which is very important. Please vote yes. Then come back in November and vote yes on the constitutional amendment that says only U.S. citizens can vote in the state of Kansas. But after you make it a law, you have to enforce it. And so, we're a motor voter state like every state in the country. I passed a law that says that the DMV has to tell the Secretary of State every non-citizen that they give a driver's license to. And the Democrats, when we tried to pass that law, is like, this is a problem, a solution in search of a problem. This never happens. Then we passed the law, and I'll be darned if we didn't find out that the mayor of Coldwater, Kansas, has been voting for 29 years as a non-citizen, and he's the mayor of the town. So this isn't, when we find out about issues, we have to have the courage to address them so that we can assure Kansans that our elections remain secure.
Thank you. The next question will have 90 seconds as well. And as a banker for the last 39 years, I have an idea of what the Secretary of State's office does other than elections. But beyond handling elections, what are the other important duties that fall under the Secretary of State's office, and how will you handle them? We'll start with you, Mr. Proctor.
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking this question because everybody wants to talk about elections. So me and my wife, when we started our first little 19-seat restaurant in Leavenworth, thank God my wife knew how to run a restaurant, or we would have been in real trouble. But neither one of us knew how to start a business. I was an Army major, and she had been working in restaurants her whole life, but she'd never started a business. And so she said, "Hey, Pat, take care of it." And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And I did the obvious things. I got a tax ID. I got a state sales tax ID. I think you have to have a food service license in order to serve food. So I went to the Department of Agriculture and got that. And I went to the Secretary of State's office and I filed for a corporation. And then we threw open the doors and we started, serving pad thai. And then the letters started coming from all those other agencies that I didn't know about. And a lot of them came with fines. And that always stuck with me. If the government's going to make you do something, it's sort of the government's responsibility to make sure you know, not the business owner's responsibility to go and find out. And so if I have the honor to serve you as Secretary of State, on that website, right under where you put the corporation name, I'm going to put another little window. And it just asks a simple question. What kind of business you want to start and where you want to start it? You put restaurant in Leavenworth, grocery store in Ottawa, whatever, and an AI backend goes and searches the Federal Register, the State Register, and your city ordinances and spits out a list of all of the different requirements and all the forms you have to fill out. Then I'm going to go back to the legislature and get a law passed that says if my website doesn't give that to you, they can't fine you for it. I'd like to say you don't have to follow the regulation, but once in a while a regulation is a good idea. So it just says you don't have to pay a fine because it's the government's responsibility to make sure that you know what you're supposed to do, not the other way around.
Thank you, Mr. Proctor. Ms. Day, same question, same time limit.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that there are a lot of things that we can do to improve the way that we service our businesses in the state of Kansas. I think that there have been a lot of improvements in the last several years, and I sure appreciate the current Secretary of State for that work that he's put in on that. I've spoken to former Secretary of State Ron Thornburg about how he handled things when he was in office many years ago as well, and asked what he would, if there's anything he could go back and change, was there any, what would it be? And one of the things that he wanted to do while he was in office but was not able to achieve was to create that connection between our various departments. So when you file for a business, you're filing to let the state know with the Secretary of State that you have a business in place, and then every couple of years you're required now to refile and pay a fee so that you stay in good standing with the state, so that they know that you still have a business going. But also when you hire an employee, then you have to go through the Department of Revenue and then the Department of Labor to do some different things there. And those things need to be better connected through those services because it just causes, as Pat mentioned, as Representative mentioned, that it becomes more of an encumbrance for our businesses. And we want to make sure that we're not creating barriers for our business in the state of Kansas as they're doing the work that they're doing, especially small businesses. It's a mom and pop situation, trying to find the time to be able to do all of run the bills and pay the employees. You really don't want to have to be working so hard to keep up with what the state needs from you as well. So making sure that people have those alerts, that's very important that we provide that service.
Thank you. At this time, we'll allow for 90 seconds and give you time to wrap up and address any issues that you'd like to address still within 90 seconds. We'll start with you, Ms. Day.
Thank you. So I will stand by the fact that I think we do have very safe and secure elections here in the state of Kansas and across the United States. What I worry about is that we've all heard about these scary stories that are happening in various places, as was mentioned with our mayor in Coldwater. And we have great procedures in place to be able to catch those things. Fraud is not generally something that people are going out and readily committing on a regular basis, because when voters come in to vote, they just want to get their voices heard. And we want to make sure that people have that path to ensure that their voice is heard. We want more people to vote in the state of Kansas. I think there was one of the governor candidates who mentioned that. We have such low turnout happening in our elections. I don't know why we'd want to make it harder for people to vote in the state of Kansas. We want to make sure that people are educated on the process, that they understand where they need to go in order to complete that vote and get their voices heard. Because the more people who vote, the better representative government that we have. And we need more balance in our government. So we need to make sure that we encourage people to get out there, have their voices heard, and I would do everything that I can to promote that as your Secretary of State, but I would also listen and hear your perspectives as well. So I sure appreciate you coming again tonight and hearing from us and for the opportunity to share. And I look forward to meeting some of you in the future, and I'd be happy to come back and meet with you sometime between now and the general election in November. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Proctor.
Yeah, I appreciate my potential Democrat opponent saying that we have great procedures in the state to prevent fraud. We have great procedures because when we identify a concern, we address the concern and put some mechanism in place. And that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years in the Elections Committee and the last 4 years as chair. That's what I'll continue to do as Secretary of State. I don't have time to talk about all the things that I have in place, so I'll just talk about one. Who's the first group of people that are going to know if you pass away? Your family, right? Well, last year we had a hearing that I asked for, and we found out that we have more people 65 years or older on our voter rolls than we have humans 65 years or older in the state of Kansas. And that's not because our clerks are bad people. That's because they can only do what we give them the tools to do in statute. And so I passed a law this last year. It's part of a bill we called the Save Kansas Act that allows a family member to go in, sign a sworn statement, say my mom, my dad, my spouse, God forbid, has died, and they can take them off the voter rolls. Well, you know what? We're being sued on that law. The ACLU, that's supported by the same folks that support March on PAC that my Democrat opponent is supported by, is going to sue the Secretary of State because they don't think that we should be taking dead people off the voter rolls because that's disenfranchising, I guess, dead voters. So we can only have these things in place if we work to get the mechanisms into law and then we defend them in courts. And I'm afraid if we don't have a Republican Secretary of State who's willing to defend these laws, they're not going to stay on the books. Thank you.
Mr. Kuhlbach, as we've done for the other candidates, we'll give you 5 minutes to kind of introduce yourself and why are you running for the office that you're running for, and maybe a little bit about yourselves.
How about that? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm running for the office because this has been the best experience of my career to be your Attorney General for the past 4 years. Nothing has been a higher honor for me than to walk into court and say, Your Honor, my name is Chris Kobach, and I'm representing the state of Kansas. And I'm asking you for the opportunity to do it again. 4 years ago, I made some promises, and I want to divide those promises into 3 categories and tell you about some cases and show you how I think I've kept those promises and why I want to keep on keeping those promises. The first, I promised that I would keep Kansans safe. Many of you know that the Attorney General is the top law enforcement officer of the state of Kansas, and I believe it's the highest duty of the Attorney General to keep the people of Kansas safe. And I have some really big numbers that just are good numbers that were just published on Monday that I'd share with you, and I doubt many of you have heard about this yet. But we just got our crime rates statistics for 2026, and we have the lowest crime rate now in the last 57 years. It's great news. And, and I can't take all the credit. Obviously, local law enforcement gets a lot of credit for that too. But it's down to 22.5 crimes per 1,000 people per year. That is way below the vast majority of states. And we've seen for the last few years successive drops in crime rates. And it's really impressive. I mean, last time it was this safe in Kansas was 1969. That was, Ward and June Cleaver and Beeve and Wally. I mean, this is really, really impressive. And you might say, well, how do we do this? Well, several things. One is I made a decision, and I promised we would tackle fentanyl. So we made it the top priority of the KBI to go after fentanyl. We brought the first fentanyl-sniffing dogs in the Midwest to Kansas. I asked the legislature, and they agreed to increase the penalties for fentanyl. And we sent the KBI out onto the streets of Kansas to start making fentanyl buys. And the results have been impressive. Now the availability of fentanyl in Kansas streets is 1/20th of what it was when I took office, while other states are still seeing the availability of fentanyl go up. And this is an even bigger number. Fentanyl deaths have dropped by 17% in Kansas when they were just going up and up and up. So that's one thing we did. Second thing we did is I deployed our attorneys in my office to the counties to offer the ability to defend the verdicts, to handle the appeals, criminal appeals for more counties. So now 55 Kansas counties, the majority, are having our expert attorneys come in and handle the appeals. Why is that important? Because we want to make all of those convictions stick. We want to make all the sentences stick, and that causes an increase in deterrence. The third thing we did is Kansas was the second state in the union when Trump came in to get 287G authority for our KBI officers. What that is about getting the authority from ICE so that our officers can periodically assist ICE in arresting and deporting illegal aliens. And we've used that to go after the worst of the worst. We have arrested and deported dozens of hardened criminals who are either drug dealers, and they've been arrested in the middle of a drug deal, convicted sex offenders, or convicted violent offenders. Every time we remove one of those individuals from Kansas streets, we've taken a career criminal and a habitual criminal out of the picture so he can't commit more crimes. And as a result of all this law enforcement action, I'm pleased to say that over 50 Kansas sheriffs have endorsed me. Second thing that we did, second promise I made, is that we would win the important cases for Kansas. And I've got a lot of cases and not much time to talk about them, so I'll just pick out a few. I argued personally a case that defeated the effort by the Biden administration to give Obamacare benefits to illegal aliens. And I don't think it matters whether you're Republican or Democrat. These are taxpayer benefits, and they shouldn't go to people who are illegally in the country. Another one that was a big one that I didn't personally argue, but one of my best attorneys did, is we took on Johnson County when they were illegally trying to impose a sales tax that was contrary to Kansas law that would have cost $540 million to all of us who sometimes shop in Johnson County, as well as to the residents of Johnson. So $540 million, as well as to the residents of Johnson County. In addition to all of that, my office has won $320 million, over $320 million in restitution and settlements. And then finally, I want to talk about the third promise I made, which is to protect our constitutional rights. And in case after case, we have stepped up to defend your rights. One of the big ones was taking on a Biden administration Title IX rule that would have taken away the free expression of religion rights of college students who simply want to say their faith-based views about gender issues. We're protecting those rights. Another one, very important, and I think this shows that I'm willing to take on anybody who threatens our rights. We're currently, yes, right now, suing the Trump administration because the ATF of the Trump administration is infringing upon the Second Amendment rights of firearms owners when it comes to suppressors. And I won't get into the details, but the bottom line is it doesn't matter who you are. I'm here to defend your constitutional rights. So 3 promises made, 3 promises kept. I hope you'll send me back for another 4 years. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome, gentlemen. At this time, we'll give you 5 minutes to introduce yourselves and tell us why are you running for the office and maybe a little bit about yourselves. And we'll start with you, Mr. Luengo. Okay, there you go.
Yes, sir. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Juan Luengo. And it's a pleasure to be with you guys here today to discuss the Treasurer's Office. I've been in Kansas for the last 21 years. This is a very personal race for me, but before I get into it, just want to kind of give you a little bit of a background. I am the CEO of a risk management brokerage firm. We're specialized in commercial insurance. I've been doing that for 20 years. I'm a fiduciary, and part of the role that we're going to talk about today is being a fiduciary for you, putting your best interest above our own. Part of the reason why this race is also personal, because some of you guys also have kids and grandkids. I have a 10-year-old that's in attendance here today, and education is extremely important. I'm a graduate from Penn State University with a communications degree, taking a couple of certificates courses from Dartmouth University and UPenn, which have allowed me to progress my career in risk management. So once again, education is important, and we're going to be talking about that here today. Small business. I'm sure some of you guys are small business, and let me tell you guys, aside from being the backbone of the U.S. labor, you're the largest employer, you don't have a seat at the table, and that's a problem. And the worst part about all this is that most of you don't have access to capital. which means that starting a business is tough, growing the business is tougher, but it makes it impossible to be able to scale. Ottawa is a fantastic town, small town. I grew up in Miami, Florida. I have an appreciation for a big town like that, just like I have in Johnson County. But I even have more of an appreciation for towns like these that are small. It's that family and that community that you guys have within your towns. You guys are always looking out for each other. You guys are connecting. So to me, that's, once again, it's important and it's personal. So I'm going to get why I'm in this race specifically. I'm going to go back to the 5 pillars that we have, and then I'll talk about our website because it's there. Education, the 529 college plan. I came out of college with student debt, and in my belief, children should not be coming out with that amount of debt starting off. And I do believe that the 529 college plan is extremely important. And connecting with school districts, okay? And I would love to have time to ask for a raise of hands. How many of you guys know about the 529 college plan? Unfortunately, we don't have that time right now. But if your kids are coming out with that amount of debt from school, it's harder for them to flourish because they're starting out with very little capital to be able to move. And they're paying more debt than anything else. I'm going to talk about Main Street Capital a little bit more in depth because small business is a passion of mine, especially when it comes to construction and farmers that are the backbone of our economy and supply chain. Construction is our future. There's a bunch of projects. They're estimated $85 trillion in the next 10 to 12 years to take place, and we need labor for that. So that's important. I want to establish an economic council in the state of Kansas because I want to get the best minds to help us with policy, shaping policy for the future. I'm halfway through my lifespan. I want to make sure that my kid and his generation and your kid's generation and grandkids' generation have a better future than what we have it now. Property tax relief, unclaimed property that falls under our purview. You guys can always go to the website. We want to try to make it a little bit more efficient. But this is the other part that's personal for me because I have parents that are elderly as well. And if you've been living or your parents have been living in their homes for 30 plus years, I want to advocate that they can stay in their home until they're passing, and then their state can pay for the back property taxes. This whole thing with the property tax system that's going on right now is insane. And in my opinion, the formula has to be changed. So if you're a senior that has lived in your home for 30 plus years, I'm going to vouch for you. And then a treasury that works for Kansas, okay? I believe in human capital. We're going to modernize the office so that the people that are there can be more efficient at their job and use that as a tool to be able to help you instead of being backlogged with paperwork. So to me, technology will help propel the office just like technology has helped our office in the private sector.
Thank you,
propel
Mr.
the growth.
Luengo.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, same time.
Thank you. Great to be with you. Thank you for being here and still being here to hear from us. So great to be with you. I currently serve as your state treasurer, and my name's Stephen Johnson. I grew up in Kansas years ago, went to K-State undergrad, did an ag economics degree there. Apparently was a slow learner. The company sent me back. I got my MBA at the University of Chicago in finance, and I worked in that industry for 24 years. And my role there was investment advice and products. In 1992, I led the team to build the first asset allocation model that we used, and much of my work has been based from that foundation, from both the university and my work experience, to look at how you strategically build portfolios, manage assets, given any particular goal and what that need is. So that served me well in the private sector. I do still farm. My nephew is taking it over, which is awesome to have somebody operating that. I appreciate the day-to-day calls that we have on markets and other details that get handled. But it is great to stay in touch across the state. Home, grew up just south of Salina. My last terms in financial services while I did work several places across the U.S. Was based in Overland Park or Leawood. I do still have a place there that I make it to occasionally, and it's good to see life in the various parts of the state. In the treasurer's office, I have enjoyed this job because it's been a good fit with what I did before, and it's a chance to do it for the state. In any of the executive offices, one of the most important skills is identifying and managing people. I've got to have the right people who do that job dependably to make sure we keep the trains on the tracks. I've got to have the right people in the IT department. We've got to continue looking at risks. We've got to look at what that next risk is and how we manage that. During recent conflicts, hits on firewalls across state systems were up 300%. We could look at it. We knew what we knew. We wanted to make sure, is there anything we're not seeing? We took our logs to the Kansas Fusion Center, asked them to run those through, learned everything we could from them, and how do we continue to stay smarter? Right now, the treasurer's office has a separate IT department from the rest of the state that helps us not be beholden to other entities that may have budget challenges and decide not to invest in that infrastructure. We cannot afford to not have working technology. It is not risk-free. It is about managing that risk, making sure that we are staying as far ahead as we are able, given the resources that we have to put towards it. But people are the key. It's about making them see their part in the overall vision, feel valued in that, and know how they contribute so that we can all be successful. So beyond that, it's about managing the money. And it's about managing the money to each goal, whether it's the cash accounts that we're dealing, whether it's the sweep account. I did set up a sweep account, didn't happen to exist for the state before. First full fiscal year, we made $9.9 million on that account. Now that's more than twice what the total budget is for the office. So each of the things is looking for the opportunities that exist as you go through. Each portfolio is different. The pension portfolio of $32 billion, very long-term time frame, very different mix than what we do in the unclaimed property portfolio, which is different from what we do in the cash portfolio, which is about $9.8 billion. There we're looking at managing cash flow for the states and the local governments when they place their monies with us to meet whatever the flows are. Watching those flows. Our biggest outflow day is October 1st. We'll spend out about $1 billion between K-12, higher ed, and the KPERS payment. But each of those just has to be managed to make sure that your assets are at work as hard as they can be, are stable, and are liquid at the point they need to be. Through that process, one of the things that was identified for us in the legislature and our partner organizations was building a collateral pool. And if the other treasurer's office functions are not boring enough, this one will win the prize. Now, Blake, you may be familiar with this. I don't know if your bank has already gone live in the pool or not.
Soon.
Soon, there you go. The bankers decided that they have wanted a collateral pool for some time. The association decided that I had the talent set to figure it out. We didn't know what it was, but figuring it out was the first challenge. Rolling it out is the next challenge. But there are always multiple constituencies. So the bankers are a very important part of that. Our other important part are our municipalities. And in 25, I got their Intergovernmental Leadership Award for that same effort. So just trying to figure out how to make things work, having the right team, and making sure we're ready to approach that for Kansans. Thanks.
Thank you. We do have two questions that you both addressed in your opening statement, but I'm going to combine them and allow you 2 minutes to answer. What are the important duties of the state treasurer, and what changes, if any, would you make if in office? And we'll start with you, Mr. Johnson.
Great question. And so I went through some of the duties. The other ones that we talked about are the 529 plan. What we do there to manage money for students. We made the biggest change there. It was the hardest decision that I faced, where we do have a new program manager. What we wanted is consistent performance for people, and we wanted low fees. We now have the lowest fees in the country of the 529 plans. Very happy with the performance we have. I think the best way to measure that will be watching the Morningstar ratings with whether or not we are achieving success on that. It's not done, it's converted, it's how do you continue to manage that going forward. So We addressed the parent rating, which is one of the pillars. We went from below average to above average, so we've got that one nailed. Next pillar is price. We're the lowest. We've got that taken care of. The next was people. We've handled that in our conversion process is the last one that we have to make sure is not only working while I'm running it, but is able to run independent of who is there, because it needs to work over 20 years. Any 4-year period is insufficient. So those are some of the things that we want to continue. I mentioned the collateral pool. We're about halfway through implementation. We just had the opportunity to add people on July 1. We were in our second round of interviews today, had 2 candidates in, excited that we can bring someone in, train them to finish that rollout, continue to manage it, and look at what we need to do next. So what we see, we designed a system, but after you design a system, the next challenge is making sure that every user knows how to use that system. And then as those users change, that they are able to use that system. And we're all now talking the same language, which is new. So getting everyone comfortable with that are 2 key things to do. The next thing, and one of the most exciting things about public office, is you don't know what the biggest thing is until you are in office. One of the biggest things we did were a couple of arbitrage opportunities, which maybe I'll talk about in the closing.
Thank you. Mr. Ulingo, same question, same time.
Perfect. Thank you. So 529 college plan, we see eye to eye there. My biggest thing is there's a big difference between passive management and active management. So passive management, you throw your money in there, God forbid, wait 15 years, 18 years to find out what you have for your son, daughter to go to school. You have an active manager that's actually looking at this portfolio on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And they're measuring performance. If there's companies that are underperforming, they're out and replaced for companies that are performing, they're in. So to me, that's important. There's a big distinction. Sometimes, yeah, we can talk about savings. That's great, but at what cost? Not at the cost of education. That's just my personal belief. On the other token of these capers, I think that's a very hot topic. Once again, not sure how many of you are state employees or retired state employees. We do have, or the treasurer's office has a seat at the table to advocate for capers. If there's any retired teachers in the room, thank you for your service, for the way that we're treating you, and any other state employee where we're back, tracking all these payments that need to be made for your retirements. Capers 2 and Capers 3, those 2 need to get reworked. Okay, I'm beyond baffled how there's no COLA on 2 and then it's a watered down Capers 3. So that's something that I will definitely be advocating and moving the treasurer's office in the right direction to advocate for the current state employees and retired state employees. You guys have worked your whole lifetime, and then you come to retirement, and then you get the boot. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to give you 90 seconds for a closing statement. If you want to wrap things up and maybe address something that we haven't talked about already. And we'll start with you, Mr. Lego.
Once again, I want to thank every one of you for being here tonight. I know you guys have family. You guys want to eat dinner. It's a little bit late, so I know what family time means to everybody here in the room. And I want to thank you again for being here. I'm asking for your vote, one, because I'm not a status quo type of guy. And I am going to be moving rapidly, much like I've done in the private sector, to fight for you. Okay, well, there's Capers 529. If you have a small business, that's my love language right there. You guys are, once again, the backbone of the American dream. I love having a house. I love having a car. And I love having apple pie. But my apple pie is getting shorter by the day. And I'm sure yours is too. I love pie, but I want my pie to get bigger. And I got a gentleman right there is laughing because he's joining this conversation. So maybe we can share pie at some point, okay? So status quo, things are comfortable. Someone that's active, managing stuff on a daily basis for you. It's somebody that if I was in your shoes, I would vote for. Once again, my name is Juan Luengo. I'm running for Kansas State Treasurer, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Great. Thanks for the chance to be here, and thank you all for being here. Similarly, I ask for your vote for treasurer to continue the work that we've done. It is a lot of work, and it does matter what you do each day. Literally, day one, I walked in, I looked at the daily cash sheet, hadn't seen it before, asked why we had $130 million in the checking account. We now have the sweep account that I mentioned, what it made from that. You do have the ability to act quickly, which is very fun about this, actually quicker than I could do it in the private sector. I was surprised because the decision was made in that day. It took about 3 weeks to contract, test, get everything set up, and get it implemented. But there's a lot that you can do as you work through it. But it is about handling those dollars. There are other things that you may be able to do but require a policy decision, which I can advocate for as any other citizen can, but it's not a change that I can make by turning on a dime as we work through that. Savings in costs do matter in that changes the net return, and that is the measure that I want to focus on for each person, whether it's in the 529 plan, whether it's something I can make by earning more on the water notes, which is one of the arbitrages that we've done, when we got a 2.69 30-year opportunity in the bond market, and we bonded several $1 million, which will turn out to be worth more than $500 million in money that we created there. Each of those opportunities we want to continue to watch, identify, and act on them when they present themselves. StephenJohnsonKS.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. That you're participating this evening. As we have with the previous office seekers, we'll give you 5 minutes each and to introduce yourselves and tell us also why you're running for this office. And we'll start with you on this side.
Hi, my name is Courtney Sappington. I am the current representative in House District 5. I live just outside of Baldwin City, so in Douglas County. There are conservatives in Douglas County. I was appointed this last fall, taking over a midterm appointment from the predecessor, and so now I am up for election after half of one term. So I am I've got 3 young kids, so I'm a mother. I have been a stay-at-home mom for the past 5 years, and my previous experience was in supply chain and logistics, which is a huge part of our economy on this side of the state in eastern Kansas. So since I've been a stay-at-home mom, that time has been spent balancing between 2 and 3 contract jobs with my kids at home. And really, my family and my community is so much a part of my identity. And so that has been what has spurred me to get involved and run and fill this seat. I see just a huge need for us in Kansas to address the issue of affordability. So many of the issues that we have talked about this evening come back to looking at the net outflow migration of people in the state, looking at our stagnant and aging workforce, and our stagnant economy. So a lot of these issues and some of these things we have addressed even this last go-around in session. One of my big points of emphasis was really looking at deregulation. We passed quite a few different bills looking at expanding the scope of practice for optometrists and pharmacists. We looked at expanding different ways for CPAs to get licenses. We entered into a host of different interstate compacts for different professions, and we set a term so that occupational licensing, any new regulation around occupational licensing in the state needs to go through the legislature. We took that away from the agencies because really we need to empower Kansans to be able to work. And really that ties in so much to even a lot of the conversations we've had around property taxes. Some of the bills that we passed and some of the ways that we looked at capping, whether it was the mill levy or the assessment values, capping that and addressing property taxes in that way is addressing the symptom, but really it's not addressing the overall issue of we need to widen our tax base, we need to grow this economy. So the third issue that is pretty important to me is foster care. I am a foster mom. I've adopted 2 of the 3 of my children from this great state of Kansas, and I am so appreciative of the state that filled that need for those kids in that transition time, and then we brought them into our home. So I served on the Foster Care Child Welfare Reform Committee, And as an area of emphasis, that's an area that I would like to continue to pour into, and especially to advocate for foster parents, because a lot of the times their voice is not heard in the system.
Well, thank you. Ms. Crawford, same question, or same amount of time.
Okay. All right, thank you. Hi, my name's Courtney Crawford. I'm from Miami County, Kansas, born and raised. I am a fifth-generation Kansan. I am a married mother of 3. I have a small family farm. We have a small business. I'm also a registered nurse. I've worked in the hospital setting. I've worked in the nursing homes. I've been a wound care nurse for several years. In the last couple years, I've actually decided to stay home. We have a small business, local farm that we've been focusing on. I've also been a 4-H shooting instructor for the last several years. This past year, we decided to step down, which has been a great experience, teaching young ones the gun safety. And I did find out that any kiddo who went through the 4-H shooting sports program has not had any mass shootings. They had the correct gun safety and whatnot. I also serve as the vice president of the Miami County Agritourism Board. I am a strong supporter of local farms and small businesses. My platform is lowering taxes, protecting property rights, and defending parental rights. I do have a proven track record. I have been a grassroots Kansan fighting against increased property tax. I did have a successful COLA petition, which brought a question to the ballot for the people to decide if they wanted an increase in their property taxes or not. And that's it.
Well, thank you. Mr. Lewis, 5 minutes.
No data centers. Oh, wait, that was for City Commission. Good evening. My name is Michael Lewis. I'm a Democratic candidate for House District 59. That is the entirety of Franklin County minus the northeast corner of Wellsville Township, where these folks are. Want to thank the Legislative Action Committee, everybody for being here. Love being here. I'm the father of 2. I have a daughter in elementary school, son who goes to Ottawa High School. Kansas has been my home since the 7th grade. I grew up in rural Miami County, graduated from Osawatomie High School. I lived out off 379th Street, just east of Lane. Not a career politician. I'm a working class dad. I've worked out at the local distribution center for the last 12 years, where currently I drive trailers around, moving lots of freight. This campaign really began in 2024 when I first ran for the Kansas House. I was humbled that I was able to give hope to and receive support from thousands of our neighbors. Everybody knows the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Topeka's broken. We must fix it. We're on the cusp of entering another Brownback era of low to no taxes for the richest, while it's all of us that end up paying the price, whether it be from higher fees, higher sales tax, higher property tax, to underfunded schools, closing hospitals. Like many of you, I'm deeply frustrated. I was thinking to pivot there. Deeply frustrated by the corporate influence and constant divisiveness in Topeka. It's time that we had representation by, and more importantly for, the working class. Well, sorry, Charlotte, I guess the employee class. When you send me to Topeka, I'll bring the perspective of everyday Kansans to the House floor. I'll fight for real targeted tax relief for the folks that actually need it. Strong public schools, including free school lunches, fully funding special education, which as a side note would reduce property taxes. Real protections for workers' rights, and protecting Kansas' freedom to make their own health care decision while finally expanding Medicaid to keep our rural hospitals open. And look forward to the questions.
Well, thank you. Well, the first question that I have here is, I'm going to combine 2 questions again and give you 2 minutes to answer. And we'll start with you, Ms. Crawford. Property taxes have increased significantly over the last several years. What specifically would be your plan for regarding property taxes? And if property taxes are reduced or eliminated, what would you propose to offset the revenue stream for our local school districts and municipalities?
All right, that's a great question. So I don't know if any of you knew that Mike Murphy's bill, Senate Bill 488, was brought forward this year. It didn't go anywhere. I'm a big fan and supporter of that bill, I think. But we also need to look at our spending. We have a lot of wants versus needs, and I see that locally all the time watching the commissioner meetings. You know, I won't vote for budgets just because I will not vote for a budget bill just to keep it going. We need to take these budgets back to committee and we need to rework them. And I also think that we need to reduce the tax burden, especially on property taxes. We need to shrink the size of government and restore economic freedom through limited government principles. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, same question, same time.
Great. I was actually mentioned this at remarks at City Commission meeting today because we're being promised all this revenue from property taxes for this potential data center. Well, if property taxes are gone, we sold that land for less for nothing. So taxes, all in all, are essentially a shell game, and it's just who's left paying the taxes. More and more, it ends up falling on the regular people. Whether you abolish property taxes and turn it into a use tax, well, that's every time you go purchase something, you're paying more money. These companies, when they purchase something, they're tax exempt, or they end up writing it off in their taxes and they get it back on the back end. So it's mainly about fairness. Property taxes itself, it's more of a balancing act between residential, corporations, what have you. Back in the 90s was the last major change to it. There was a constitutional amendment that rebalanced the assessment rates at what different classifications of real estate was assessed at. So it's more so, my point of view would be rebalancing the assessment rates to make it fair where it used to be 35% residential, everything else the rest. Now it's 65% residential, everything else the rest. So it's got to bring it back into effect to share the burden instead of leaving it on the people that are scraping to get by.
Thank you. Ms. Sappington, same question, same time.
A lot of people liked the concept of Senator Murphy's bill, but the reason why it never left the Senate Tax Committee is because it wasn't feasible and it wasn't workable, which he admitted to. He kind of threw the idea out there to kind of get the conversation started, but Senator Murphy's property tax bill to abolish property tax was based on a transactional measure, which we cannot capture right now. So that's something that I think we could certainly visit, but it would take some time to understand the implications of the breakout of how that would be applied to the cost per transaction. Right now, like the DOR only captures dollar sales. And so what I think, and what we did this year, some of the legislation that we passed, the House position was a revenue cap, the Senate position was an assessment value cap. I think those two things can come together and they need to work together in tandem. We need both. But ultimately, we need to widen our tax base. We need to grow our economy so that we have more people contributing. Kansas is one of the most overgoverned states in the nation. We have 105 counties serving 3 million people. We have 105 counties because when those were set 150 years ago, a county seat couldn't be more than a day's horse ride from one to the other. So I would say when I'm considering looking at the issue of property taxes, let's look at what we're spending that money on, because I think there's a lot of consolidation that needs to happen.
Thank you. We'll start with this question for Mr. Lewis, and we'll allow for 90 seconds. What can you, as a state legislator, do to ensure that proper regulations are put in place regarding data centers to protect our water resources and protect the citizens from increased electric rates?
Well, as you might notice, definitely if you've heard me before, my motto is working class to the working class, which at the end of the day, not necessarily anti-corporation, but they need to be responsible. Last forum, I sat here and was mentioned, well, would you rather a natural gas plant be built next door, or a power plant? And here we are, we have a natural gas power plant being built next door. So the thing is, it boils down to local control. I'm proud of the movement we have here in Ottawa that's trying to push these away. So as a state level, as a ban, I don't know. As a moratorium, I 100% agree with. There needs to be situations developed to have the correct processes in place to protect water, to protect energy, to make sure the burdens of upgrading the utility infrastructure falls on these companies, and ultimately to have the mechanisms in place to where whatever happens with property taxes, they continue paying for their use. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sappington, same question, same time.
Yeah, certainly. So I would support the elimination of any special tax incentives that these types of data centers would take. We see that the companies that are putting the capital in and investing here clearly don't need that incentive to build them. I am supportive of the large load tariff that the KCC looks like they passed last fall. I think that we need to wait and see how that rate premium is worked out and how that's hashed out. It's something that is worth revisiting, whether that's annual or every other year. It's something that I think we should look at codifying into law to make sure that the costs of these data centers are not being spread out to residential users and taxpayers. But I think it's something that we need to be willing to tweak as we move forward to understand the boundaries we put in place and are those appropriate. And I do believe that at the state level there is a rule for some guardrails and some standards set as far as water standards go. The use of water, but then also the downstream effect and what we're going to do with the wastewater. I am very supportive, and I've heard that it sounds like there is going to be some legislation this next year.
Ms. Crawford.
All right, so many of you know District 5 covers multiple counties, a little bit of Miami, a little bit of Johnson, a little bit of Franklin, a little bit of Douglas. I've been to many of the city council meetings regarding data centers. I do support a statewide and countywide moratoriums on data centers. We need an independent third-party environmental study done. I went to a local city not too long ago, and the developer's being allowed to do an independent environmental study, but we truly need to have an independent third-party study. I do not support tax incentives for these companies. We do need safeguards. You know, we need to protect our citizens. We need to protect our water. We need to make sure it's not going to hurt the citizens. I would not have voted for the toilet to tap bill, which was a data center bill. It is House Bill 2462. I also would not have voted for the water bill, which is 2433, which takes local government authority away from your counties and cities. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll allow 30 seconds for the next question. What is your stance on legalizing medical and recreational marijuana? And we'll start with you, Ms. Sappington.
You said 90 seconds.
I said 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry, 30 seconds. I was going to say, I don't need 90 seconds. Medical, I guess I would be amenable to that conversation, but recreational, no. I don't like it. There you go.
Okay. Ms. Crawford.
I think we need to do more studies to see if medical marijuana is if it's even beneficial. I'm a nurse. I think I have heard of now the doses now and the strengths are much stronger than they were, a long time ago. I think there just needs to be a little bit more studies done. I need to do a little bit more investigation, a little bit more reading about it. I do not support recreational use, though.
Okay. Mr. Lewis.
I've smoked marijuana and I did inhale. There's something like 41 states medical marijuana is legal, 20-something states. I'll go ahead and preface, it's been a long, long, long time. 20-something states recreational is available. With making it an industry, you turn it into a regulated product. You cut out drugs to street dealers, keeps them from introducing other harmful drugs to the children. It's regulated, there's an age associated. You gotta be 21 to buy cigarettes now.
Thank you. Ms. Crawford, and we'll start with you, and it's a 60-second question. This is the year to redo the education funding plan. What would you like to see in the state's education plan?
So I do support school of choice with no strings attached. I also have learned, I don't know a lot about the special education. I'm still learning, I'm still researching, but I do know that the special education is funded on the back end and not the front end. Most states, most red conservative states fund their special education on the front end. There's too much room for error since Kansas funds it on the back end. Also, Kansas special education is funded per teacher and not per pupil, and most of your conservative states fund it per pupil and not, sorry, I messed it up. They fund per teacher, not per pupil in Kansas, but most states fund it per pupil. I do believe our education formula does need to be redone, relooked at. It's confusing. I feel like there's a lot of errors to be done there. I'm still researching it. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
If you could repeat that, I was in my.
Sure. This is the year to redo the education funding plan. What would you like to see in the state's education plan?
I would wish they would change the language in the law that talks about special education, where I watched the committee hearing dealing with that, and there was a representative that's used a loophole saying, you know, the state shall fund special education at 92% upon appropriations, saying if the money was there. Well, when you don't fund special education, the schools tap into their general fund to make up the difference. I am the uncle of a autistic niece that has spent her whole life, last 18 years, well, school age, so that going to a tri-county school for special education. We just need to take care of our children. They are our future. The money that they're sending, they want to give away to private institutions. That goes to certain families. Let's make school lunches free. That equates to about $1,000 a year per child. That'll help the working class.
Thank you. Ms. Sappington?
Yeah, so when we are looking to revisit the school funding formula next year, I think, as was stated earlier, broadly, we do need to simplify it. Base aid continues to go up every year, and we have 11 different weights that each student can get that would be potentially applied. And so I think we need to reduce that. We shouldn't have 11 different weighting systems that would be applied. I think there needs to be better transparency around how that money is spent. That's been a lot of the conversation around how a lot of this SPED money is being spent, is then that we need to better understand how that's being applied to the students and how the students are benefiting from it. And again, with this conversation around transparency, 90% of our districts in Kansas have faced declining enrollment, and yet we continue to spend more and more and more. So I would like to have a better understanding of where that money is going. I do support a voucher program. I believe a rising tide lifts all ships. Studies have borne that out, that in states that have applied a voucher program, the kids across the board benefit. I don't think...
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Same question. Did I already ask you? I'm sorry. At this time, and where am I now? I've lost track. Is Mr. Lewis? Give you 90 seconds for closing remarks, or if you want to bring up anything and close it out.
I guess I'll give you some homework. If you want to go check the party that was been in power for the majority of the last century and look at the work that's come out of Topeka, by all means, I ask you to do that. Touch on property taxes. One thing that did come out last session, exempting boats. So if you are good enough to afford a $70,000 boat, congrats. You no longer have to pay property tax on that. But if you're a single family with one car, pay the money. We just need regular, everyday folks to have representation. Look up ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council. It's a nationwide organization, legislators, corporations, they make bills, they send them back to the states, they change a few words, they pass them. Let's have stuff actually made here and for Kansans. My name is Michael Lewis. You can visit my website at lewisforkansas.com. I would appreciate and be humbled to get your vote in November. Thank you.
Ms. Sappington?
Yes, so I would be more than humbled and excited to go back to Topeka on your behalf for District 5, so Wellsville in rural Franklin County. I am a conservative with a proven track record. I stand by my voting record. I've got the KFL's endorsement. I am committed to being a pro-life legislator and supporting our families. I've got specific legislation ideas around deregulating small business, reducing the scope of government, particularly with an issue that we've seen pop up in Douglas County. I'd like to empower our teachers to be able to work where they want in Kansas, whether that's in public schools or private schools, because teachers straight out of college right now don't necessarily have that option. And I'd like to also revisit case plan goals as they relate to foster care cases. Right now in Kansas, when a kid enters foster care, we prioritize reunification above all else for the first 12 months. And I think that goal should be on par with the child's interest, which may or may not be going back to the biological home. So with these legislative priorities in mind, I would ask for your vote, Courtney Sappington, on August 4th.
Thank you. Ms. Crawford, you have the last word.
I just want to mention I am not a career politician. I am one of you. I was born by you, Save the Difference. I am a neighbor who's tired of watching the government grow while our wallets shrink and freedoms erode. We need legislators that don't vote on party lines just because they're being told to. We need strong fighters, people who are passionate about protecting our rural communities, because District 5 is mainly rural communities, rural towns. We need somebody to protect our land rights. I'm a big land rights activist. I've been fighting grassroots for several years at the county local level. I will not rubber stamp bigger government or find new ways to reach deeper into your pockets. Instead, I will be consistent, principled conservative who fights every single day to lower taxes. I was honored to have the endorsement of the former state representative, Carrie Barth. I ask for you to please vote for me August 4th, and also to vote yes on the constitutional amendment for the Supreme Court justices. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, candidates. At this time, I'd like to give you 5 minutes to introduce yourself and why are you running for office. And we'll start with you, Ms. Linkard.
Okay. My name is Renee Slinkard, and I am running for the Kansas State Board of Education, District 9. And I will start with my education. I'm a Baker University graduate. I have a bachelor's in business administration and a master's of science and management. I also have earned my registry in diagnostic medical sonography. My business career is my husband Don and I built a steel fabrication business from ground up. We started in a barn and we have a dirt floor. That's what we started with. And now we are a successful steel fabricating business in Bonner Springs, Kansas, and we service industry and commercial, and my son is president of that corporation. Also, I'm a retiree from AT&T as a project manager, and what I did as a project manager is I would fix breakdowns. I would take them from start to a resolution, a successful resolution. So that is my work career. I also did substitute teaching. I taught junior achievement in Turner School and did some was a teacher's aide. So I have quite a bit of work experience, but I also am really involved in community service. And my community service involved the Daughters of American Revolution. I joined it. After I retired, I joined it because it was a service organization. And that's what I wanted to do, to serve the community. So on the committee of Daughters of American Revolution is Constitution Week. So I teach Constitution to all the schools throughout Kansas, wherever they call me, but mostly in several areas around where I live, several counties, for 13 years. And I've been doing this, and I love it. I also am state chair of Constitution Week, over 60 chapters who do the same thing as I do, going in and teaching the children the Constitution. And I'm telling you, they are eager to learn. And they love it. After I'm through, they come up and give me a big hug. And that is the most rewarding thing, is to see that, see their eagerness in learning. I also was, for 3 years, community classroom state chair. And we serviced the classrooms, the teachers and the students, and whatever supplies they needed. And it was surprising to find out that they needed supplies after our tax-paying dollars were supposed to supply them. But we do it because our service organization is a charitable organization, and we want to make sure that the teachers and students have what they need. So this is what I do, and I don't know how much more time I have, maybe 1 minute. But I do want your vote, and I guess that's all I have to say, and I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate the Chamber of Commerce actually sponsoring this. Thank you so much.
Okay. Ms. Gerken.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out this evening. My name is Christian Gerken, and I am running for state school board because this isn't political to me, it's personal. First and foremost, I am a child of God. I am a wife of 20 years, and together we have 5 children together, 4 of which are old enough and in the public school system now. Our youngest is 4, so she's not quite there yet. I was born and raised in Kansas, born in Pratt, Kansas, grew up in Wichita, and after graduating moved to Paola, Kansas. My husband and I currently pastor in Paola, and we own businesses across the state with his family. I am a current board member of the Paola School Board. I've seen firsthand the challenges our schools, teachers, and families are facing, and I believe Kansas families deserve a stronger voice in the decisions being made for their children. At the heart of my campaign, I have 4 simple priorities. First and foremost is transparency and accountability. Families have the right to know what is being taught in the classrooms, how their tax dollars are being spent, and how decisions are being made. Parents should never feel like they're kept in the dark. If I'm elected, I will push for open communication, honest leadership, and accountability when results are falling short. Our schools should answer to the families and communities they serve. Second item is parental rights. I believe America is facing a moral crisis, and we are seeing the effects of that drift show up in our schools. More and more schools are being pulled away from their core purpose, and parents are being pushed to the sidelines. That has to stop. Parents should be free to raise their children according to their values, and schools need to get back to doing what they were meant to do, educating our students. Parents are the primary voice in their children's life and education, not politicians and not outside agendas. They deserve the right to review materials, ask questions, and have a real seat at the table when decisions are being made. My third item is confronting the literacy crisis. The issue is deeply personal to me. My 4th son was diagnosed with dyslexia a few years back. I had brought the attention up for 1.5 years to the school system with a response of, he's okay, it's gonna be fine, he'll just catch up, he's a boy. It being my 4th child, I knew that something was wrong. So I fought and fought, finally took him to his pediatrician. I didn't even know that that was how you begun to get a diagnosis. Took him to his pediatrician, took him to Children's Mercy. He spent 10 minutes with the doctor there, and she said he obviously has dyslexia. In that moment, I was brought to tears because as a mom, I felt validated and I felt heard. And I also felt a little bit of rage in the fact that I should have felt validated and heard in the school systems before I went to the doctor. So this one is extremely personal to me. I know what it feels like to watch your child struggle and to have to push for answers and support that should have been there in the first place. I've seen firsthand how reading affects everything. When a child falls behind in reading, it affects English, it affects science, it affects history, it affects math, and every other subject too. Reading is the foundation for learning, and when we fail to catch those who struggle early, we fail our kids. That's why I will fight for proven reading, instruction, early intervention, and real accountability so every child has a chance to succeed. My fourth is I believe in empowering local school boards. The best decisions are made closest to home by parents, teachers, and locally elected school boards who actually know their students and communities. One-size-fits-all mandates from Topeka don't always work for every district. Local voices matter and local control matters. This also comes from my experience of being on a local school board and being kept completely in the dark, not feeling like I really had a real connection with the state board. So my goal and my priority is to focus on local boards and to make sure that they are empowered to do what they're designed to do. They're designed to be community members elected to come together, right, for the sake of our students. So it was never set up to be only people who had degrees in education or only doctors or lawyers. It was set up to be your neighbors and your grandparents and your sisters and your uncles coming together as a community, being a voice for what you want in the school district. Having experience in leadership roles, I have learned the best experience. I'm not running for a title. I'm running to be the voice of Kansas families, to stand up for students, to bring practical, common sense leadership to the state board. And I would be honored to earn your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. The question that we have for you, and we'll allow 60 seconds for it, is how do you view the role of the State Board of Education? And we'll start with you, Ms. Gerken.
Yes, so the goal of the state board obviously is to oversee local boards and to work alongside legislative. So the state board responsibilities is general supervision of the schools, academic and standards and curriculum, the accreditation of our schools, and then the educator licensing, also to appoint the commissioner of education. My view is simple. If a method works, our schools should use it. I believe that the relationship between the state school board, the local school boards, and the Kansas legislature should be a functional relationship, and they should work together for what is best for the needs of our students.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Slickard, same question.
Thank you. The most important thing on the State Board of Education is accreditation standards. And what I want to see is I want the school leadership to say, here we are, and this is where we'll be. And it can be done. I think that many of the things that go on in the school system, and I have watched the school board meetings, and much of the superintendent talks and says what he wants, and the school board goes right along with it. They don't really discuss a lot, and they don't really ask a lot of questions. I'm not saying that all superintendents have a right or wrong answer, but or wanting, the right thing or the wrong thing, whatever. But I do think that the school board members are not really questioning and discussing what the superintendent wants. But the superintendent leads the school boards.
Thank you, Ms. Slinker. We're out of time on that question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to give you 90 seconds to kind of wrap it up and closing remarks, and we'll start with you.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say that I do believe in parental input in their children's education. And that means the parents should be able to go to a classroom, watch their child learn, and see what they're learning. And second of all, I would like to see one size fits all, not in the schools. I want to get back to individualized education. Getting back to basics is another thing. We need to get back to reading, writing, arithmetic, American history, and civics. That's what we need to get back. Less screen time. I'm not saying do away with screen time, but balance it out. And then the very last and most important is accreditation standards. Our ACT scores in Kansas are 20%. They should be at least by a national average of 30%. So we are below average in Kansas. And as a project manager, I will fix that. And you can go to my website at slinkardforparents.com. And I also have a Facebook site, the same, Slinkard for Parents. And I ask for your vote. And I thank you so much for coming here and listening to us. And thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Gherkin.
I'm Christian Gherkin, a wife, a mom, and a current board member of Paola USD 368 School Board. I'm running because I've lived these issues every day in my own family and in our local schools. I've seen what happens when parents are sidelined, when reading proficiency slip, and when distant decisions override what our communities know is best for their kids. I'm stepping up to fight for transparency and real accountability, to protect parental rights, to confront the literacy crisis head-on, and to strengthen local school boards instead of burying them under more top-down mandates. As a mom and school board member who knows our students, our teachers, and our families, I'm ready to bring practical, parent-centered leadership to Topeka and put Kansas kids first. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for hosting.
This evening, as we have for the previous offices, we will allow you 5 minutes up to 5 minutes to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for office. And we'll start with you, Mr. Hornbuckle.
Scott Hornbuckle, and I decided to run because I'm tired of the way the county is getting ran, and not really ran. It's more of taxes keep going up, and we're going to get taxed out of our own places. I was a contractor for years. Well, when you're a contractor, you can make the extra money. But now I decided to give that up after an injury, and I'm farming. Money's a lot tighter anymore, and taxes every year goes up, and they say, well, our budget's neutral. Well, why are you not budget's neutral if you get more money in taxes, property taxes every year? Mill levy, yes, but not taxes. And our roads, I see on my farm alone, there's probably 10 dump truck loads of gravel that come off the county roads. They don't have to do that. They make the ditch go to the ditch water. Instead of running 2 ditches, one down the road and one in the thing, we wouldn't be wasting thousands and thousands of dollars in rock a year. Other than that, Miss Diane, she's a very nice lady. I have nothing against her. She's very nice, but if you want change, you got to change with the people in charge. And otherwise, because everybody in that place, except for one's had multiple years, almost decades in there. And for the last 10 years, 20 years, taxes go up and up and up. So we got to get rid of the people in there to try to get a change. If you don't change the input, you'll never find a different result.
Thank you. Ms. Dickinson, same time.
If you guys are still here, why? They should have brought pizza in, I think. And if you're still listening online, awesome. That's awesome. I didn't grow up in Franklin County. I was born in Dickinson County, actually. I grew up in Salina, went to Bartlesville Wesleyan College, got a business administration degree. But I've lived in Franklin County for most of my adult life. I lived 28 years in town, and I have now lived 10 years in the county. 8 years ago, I ran for county commission. You know, when you run for county commission, I think for any political office, you really don't know what you don't know. 8 years ago, when I was doing this, and they would ask me questions, and I'm like, I don't know. I haven't done this job. It's a great, big learning curve. You think you know all the answers, and then you get in there and go, wow, I didn't know all the answers, but I have learned you don't have to always know everything about everything. The county has 23 departments. I do not know everything about all those departments, but if somebody calls me with a question, I know who to call. And I think that's the important thing. And then when I do find out what to call or I get an answer, then I do call people back. And I've been really proud of that people call and I do return their phone calls. That's been important to me, that I listen and I hopefully can take. Sometimes the answers are not what they want, and I can't always guarantee that that's what's going to happen. But I have truly, I think that being on the county commission has probably been truly one of the most rewarding things I have ever done. I didn't really have a plan when I first ran how long I was going to run. There is a particular reason why I'm running one more time, and I'm going to say that at the very end. I was trying to scribble down some of the things that I've been the most proud of in the 8 years that I've been on the commission. Shutting down our department, our JDC center, was probably one of the hardest. That's our juvenile detention center. Probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done, that we've ever done, but probably one of the easiest. It saved the county taxpayers about $500,000 a year. We have gotten ourselves into a financial position that we are now being able to pay cash for any equipment that anything that we're doing from now on, hopefully, which will save interest. We have here, I've got it right down here. We have paid down our debt. We used some of the money that the government gave us through the COVID, some of our COVID money. We paid down debt, which saves hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayer money per year. Probably one of the most exciting things that we did was improvements to Old Highway 50. We replaced part of it, but even the rest of it is shown major improvement. When I started in 2019, our mill levy was 62 mills. This year, our mill levy is just over 45. That's 25%. We've reduced our mill levies. This year, our goal, and hopefully we'll know by next week if we can do it, but we are really, I think that we're going to be able to stay revenue neutral. And tell me how hard that is in your households with the prices, everything going up. Are you going to be able to spend only what you spent last year? We have asked all of our department heads to just bite the bullet and try to do that. The one reason I am still running for county commission is there is one thing that we really need to get done, and that is our comprehensive plan. I have spent 8 years talking to people about what they do or do not want in this county, and a lot of that has to do with solar, wind, and now data centers. I would like to be a part of the process, so I am running. I'm not going to say it only one more time, but I am running this time, and I would love to be able to finish the job.
Okay, thank you. We'll give you 60 seconds for the next question, and we'll start with you, Ms. Dickinson. What is appropriate economic development for Franklin County?
What is appropriate economic development for Franklin County? I don't think it's a data center, unfortunately. You think about a lot of things that I think one of the things that we have a problem with in Franklin County is we don't have enough employees. We don't have enough people that want to go to work. So it needs to be, if we have new jobs that come in, it needs to be something that doesn't require a lot of employees. We need something that is going to keep people in town and not moving away from town. I think before we can have economic development, we need more housing. So we need to figure out how to encourage our communities to encourage housing. They say, there's some of our communities say they do, they want to encourage people to move here, but their rules and regulations aren't as, anyway. So we need housing before we can have jobs.
Okay. Mr. Hornbuckle.
Well, I think small business is more important than a large business, because large businesses really just look out for themselves and not the community. Communities always look out for themselves if it's smaller businesses. And I do agree, we do have to have development. We are unfortunately, basically a subsidiary of Johnson County. We got all them people coming down here. I don't really care for it, but that is sort of where we're at. And we're gonna have houses, and we gotta have water issues, which I know we brought up on Franklin County Planning and Zoning about different alternatives, because there are certain rural water areas that there are none, and we keep splitting up for housing developments, but there's no game plan with them when that aquifer starts running low. There's nothing from the county, any kind of talk about what we're gonna do. They're like, that's the individuals that have been here for 30 years, now we're splitting them up and selling into houses. So it has to be more responsible development than just houses. We gotta really have a game plan on water and power before we start developing.
Yeah. Thank you. And the next question is, outside of the state required, and we'll allow 60 seconds, Greg, outside of the state required elements of county government, what is your opinion of the most important role the county plays? Outside of the state required elements of county government. Yeah. Mr. Hornbuckle.
Well, any government is looking out for their constituents, their working constituents. That's who we need to look out for and take care of them. Take care of our people that's been here for their whole lives. Don't worry so much about bringing new ones in until we take care of the ones we got. And people can afford to stay in their homes. And because when I was out talking to everybody, that's the biggest concern is everybody's like, we're gonna move out of Franklin County. People have been here because they can't afford the taxes. And that's really discouraging when you talk to retired people on fixed incomes and they're talking about moving. So most important government is look out for the people.
Okay. Ms. Dickinson.
When I tell people I'm a county commissioner, they go, what do you do? And because we have an administrator, a lot of the things that some county commissioners do, we don't have to do, hire and fire. Anyway, but what we do is we set the budget and we set policy. We are problem solvers. A lot of times people come in and they'll call us and they have problems. We are listeners. Sometimes we'll be going in and we'll be discussing an issue and I'll think that I know how I'm going to vote. But I listen, and sometimes I change my mind because, I am not voting for me, I'm voting for the people in my district. So I need to listen to what they want, so I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, thank you. At this time, and we're running a little bit over, and I apologize for that, I'll give you up to 90 seconds for closing remarks. We'll start with you, Ms. Dickinson.
We've heard a lot about property taxes, and I will tell you that probably county commissioners are as frustrated at that subject as anybody. Unfortunately, the state legislature are the only ones that can change it. They are the ones that tell us how we can raise money. At this point, the state has given us a vehicle with one gear, property taxes. That vehicle used to have a whole lot of gears, but one by one, the state has stripped those gears away. Now we have property tax. At the same time, they are increasing the services that we're supposed to provide. We now have 18 mandated services that the state says that we have to provide. And they've taken money away, but given us more to do. I've talked to my state legislators. At the same time, they've given the same key that we get to that same vehicle, they've given it to the schools, and they've given it to the cities, they've given it to rural fire, they've given it to the library, everybody's got the same key. we're trying to run in idle or neutral, but if they're in third gear going straight, there's nothing we can do about it, and it's very frustrating. I've asked my state legislators, I'm like, give us another gear. Give us help. We need, and the response was, this is what you have, deal with it.
Thank you. Mr. Hornbuckle. Closing remarks.
I really don't have much to say other than I've been here a while now, and I've been on Franklin County Planning and Zoning, and this county, we drag our feet. Wind and solar, we left for a little bit. I think that's a very major topic we need to get out of here, because just because they left, we're going to have more come in. As soon as it changes the power, they're going to come in, they're going to come back. Data centers are here. County commissioners, we put county money into them roads, to that thing, and now we don't even have a say in it. And I just think that's completely wrong, because we did put money into that system out there, out to that area. And we do not, and they gave up our right to even have a say of what businesses go in there. So I just need a change. I think as a county, we need a change. Yeah, if you drop property taxes and raise income taxes, there's still taxes. The only way to save our people money is to cut funding. And unfortunately, that offends a lot of people, but you got to give up some services for the greater. I mean, don't have to have all the nice things every time. You just do without, because in my personal life, if I don't have the money, I do without. And a lot of people, they just ask for a handout, and that's what a lot of 401s around here, they come and ask for a handout. So I just think it needs to stop.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, candidates. This evening, I do have a few announcements. July 14th is the deadline to register to vote or update your voter registration information to participate in the 2026 primary election. July 15th is the first day of advance smoking. Advance ballots by mail sent and in-person advance voting may begin July 20th. On July 28th is the last day to apply for advance voting mail ballot. August 3rd is the in-person advance voting time when it ends, and August 4th is the primary election. And all advance ballots by mail must be postmarked by the election date and received by Friday, August 9th. And then October 7th will be the General Election Candidates Forum at 6 p.m. at the same place. I'd like to thank those that were involved in the production this evening. The candidate check-in table and question table were manned by Louis Reed and Linda Alderman. The timekeeper was Greg Bohannon. I would also like to thank the City of Ottawa and the Ottawa Municipal Auditorium for providing the venue and also taping the event. It will be available online to view again. I'm your moderator, Blake Jorgensen. Thank you for coming.